Story 1. Toxic stepmom spent years turning my dad against me. Now he's expecting me to be his free divorce lawyer after she cheated and got pregnant by her coworker behind his back. Hi, I am a 24-year-old female, and I'm just starting out as a lawyer. My father recently asked me to help him out, but I had to decline, and now my family is hating me because of that. The context is that my father had cut ties with me a couple of months ago after calling me, and I quote, mentally unstable and jealous for something that I didn't even do. My stepmother, who is the worst person on earth, accused me of pushing her down the stairs when she was pregnant at her baby shower. I don't know why she did that, probably just because she hates me and wants everyone to hate me along with her. Well, she succeeded in that plan and made my father hate me, although I can't exactly say that I hadn't already made it believable for him. My stepmom, Vicky, 40F, and my dad, 48M, got married 10 years ago after dating for 2 years, so I have known Vicky for almost 12 years now. She has always tried her best to make my life as miserable as she possibly can. I honestly don't know why she hates me so much, because right from the first time that we met each other, she didn't like me. I hadn't even given her a reason to dislike me at that point. I was literally just 12 years old. But she always had a bit of an attitude problem and would be openly nasty to me when my dad was not around. So, I learned to hate her as well. Because I was just 12, I did not see any reason why a full-grown adult was acting that way with me. I was used to being trusted by adults because I was actually a good kid. I had good grades and behaved nicely with everyone. Even with Vicky, I tried my best to be nice to her for as long as I could. However, after one point, I realized that no matter how nice I was to her, she was never going to extend the same courtesy to me. So, I started to treat her the same way that she would treat me. If she spoke to me rudely, I would make sure to retort in a much worse tone. If she said something that I did not like about my appearance or anything else, I would make it a point to comment on her appearance or personality as well. But whenever my father was around, he would only tell me to stop, but he would never say a word to Vicky. I was literally the only person who was reprimanded, and several times, I had even been grounded because of what I had said, only in response to what she had said to me. I never started the fights, but somehow it was always my fault. I found it very unfair, but I had to deal with it because I had nobody else to go to. My mother was never in the picture. She had signed away her rights when I was little, and my father had been my only parent all my life. Even before Vicky had come along, he had a couple of girlfriends, but they had all been nice to me. Unfortunately, he was not serious about any of them, so he did not end up with them. If I'm being honest, he was not serious about me either. I felt like a child was more like a side project for him because most of the time, I would end up spending my time at home with babysitters or maybe my grandma. He was never around much as a child, and even as I grew older, I was unable to develop a connection with my dad because either he was absent from my life or just not interested. He never showed up to any of my events as a child, and it would leave me disappointed every single time. But thankfully, I did have my grandma, and she always tried to be there for me. I lost her a couple of years into high school, and I was very upset about it for a very long time. It felt like I had lost my only family because, at the time, I was living with my dad and Vicky, and it was a nightmare to be honest. She had grown even more vicious after she got married to my father. Now that she knew that she was not going anywhere and my dad was always going to put her first. After she got married, she started coming after me even more. She would be rude to me, and she would make all sorts of unwelcome comments about me, and I was just expected to deal with her silently. Every time I would try to argue with her or tell her to shut up, my dad would scold me and tell me that I was not allowed to speak to her. After my grandmother passed away, Vicky started making even worse comments. She would taunt me that now that I did not have anybody sticking up for me, I was going to be screwed. It was true, that's why it hurt even more. She told me that she was going to make sure of the fact that my dad kicked me out of the house before I even had the chance to leech off of him and demand that he pay my college tuition, and she was going to take all that money and buy herself something nice because that would be more useful than sending me to college because I was an idiot. That part was not even true because I was a straight-A student, and I knew that she was just trying to get me riled up, but it would always get on my nerves. It was a horrible cycle. She would say something really cruel to me, I would get all pissed off, then say something to try and get back at her, and then my dad would ground me. Even when I would try to warn him that he was with a gold digger, He would not believe me and tell me that I was just being territorial about him, and he did not appreciate it. It was just so frustrating. One time, I just snapped. It had been about 1.5 years since my grandmother had passed, and Vicky had been making the worst comments. One day, I came back home from school, and I had already had a very bad day because somebody had spilled something on my clothes. It was not something that they had done on purpose, but it had ruined my outfit. I also had a splitting headache that day. I was just very pissed off already from how my day was turning out to be. And when I got back home, instead of just leaving me alone, Vicky made some snarky comments. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the next thing that I knew, I was on top of her and trying to punch her. The only advantage that I had was that I had caught her off guard, and she had been completely blindsided, so I had been able to pounce on her and pin her to the ground. But once she realized what was happening, she turned the tables, and we got into a really bad physical fight. I'll admit that it was really psycho and stupid of me to initiate that fight knowing that she was much bigger than me. I was very skinny at that point, and there was no way that I would have been able to tackle it all on my own. She managed to get me off of her, but I was still screaming my head off, so she pushed me into the room and locked me in there for hours. I was only let out of that room after my dad came back home from work. She had not even bothered to call my dad to alert him earlier, and he came back home around the evening at his usual time, so I think I must have spent around 4 or 5 hours inside the storeroom. It had just one window, and it was a really tiny and cramped room because of everything that was in there, and I remember banging on the door periodically, begging her to let me out and promising her that I would not attack her again, not now and not ever. I am pretty claustrophobic, so that was a total nightmare for me, but she just ignored me, and I stayed inside there, crying and begging her to let me out, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. After my dad came back home, they let me out, and both of them were pretty pissed. My dad even told me that he was going to have me sent away and threatened to report me to the authorities because of what I had done. I was miserable, and I had to beg them not to do anything of this sort and let me stay with them. I promised them that I would never do anything like this and that I would always be on my best behavior. Vicky was pretty pleased with herself even though she was the one who got attacked, but at least this gave her an excuse to dominate me. After that incident, I had to live up to my word, and I had to stay on my best behavior. Even when Vicky would make remarks about me and try to piss me off, I just had to shut up and deal with it because I knew that if I tried to talk to her, there would be serious consequences, and I was not ready for that. I also really wanted my dad to pay for me to go to college. I could not risk it because I did not have any other family who would do it for me. I had a couple of friends, but I was not going to beg anybody for money, and taking out a student loan would also require my parents to support me. That was the reason why I stayed with them and decided not to try and get back at Vicky no matter what she did. It was very difficult given the circumstances, but I knew that I had to get through it somehow. I just kept consoling myself, reminding myself that I would be off to college in a couple of years and then I would not have to deal with her. So, eventually, after I graduated high school, I left home for college and all my hard work paid off. My dad actually agreed to pay for me to go to college, which was definitely not something that Vicky had wanted. But my dad said that he was only paying for me to go to college because for him it was an investment and if I became successful he would get back the money. He knew that I was going to study law and lawyers earned pretty well, so he was not worried about me being able to get a job and pay him the money back at some point. I told him that I was going to return the money to him, but thankfully he did not get it in writing, and if you don't have it in writing, it's not binding in any way, shape, or form, so I'm free to do whatever I want, really. Anyway, after I left for college, my life was completely different, and I was finally my own person. I was not constantly living in fear of Vicky and my father, and I felt like I could breathe freely for the first time in my life. I made a lot of friends, and my time in college will always be memorable for me. I think they were the best years of my life. I would go back home for the holidays and then stay out of everybody's way. I would mostly just keep to myself, and I would not allow Vicky to ruin my vibe with her comments and negativity because I knew that I only had to tolerate her until the time to go back to college again, so that was pretty great. And once I graduated from college, I moved into an apartment with a couple of my friends. Within months, I found a job at a law firm, and I'm still working there. We specialize in matters relating to the family court like divorces and custody arrangements, you know what I'm talking about. And that's why my father specifically asked for my help. However, after what happened a couple of months ago, I highly doubt that I would be willing to help him. So, earlier this year, my dad and Vicky announced that they were pregnant. I was a little surprised that she was getting pregnant so late and had even decided to keep the baby, but I thought it was a good thing. Maybe my father would be more of an active presence in his child's life this time around. I congratulated them, and they announced that, and I even attended their pregnancy announcement party. It was more of a formality because if I did not attend, it would lead to a lot of questions and drama in the family, so I decided to attend. I have not exactly been in touch regularly with my dad or Vicky after I moved out, and we only speak to each other maybe once or twice a month, and I only visit them on the holidays or on birthdays or events like these, as long as they invite me. Dad does occasionally get in touch with me to ask how I'm doing, and I do the same for him. It is more obligatory than something that either actually wants to do. Vicky and I don't speak to each other at all. I'm honestly happy that that day I didn't have anything to say to her, and I'm sure that she would not have anything nice to say to me either. Anyway, even at the pregnancy announcement party, I congratulated them and I got them a gift. Vicky did not thank me, and neither did she look at me throughout the day. I was actually relieved because of that because it just meant that she would not be making any comments or trying to rile me up like she usually does. So that was how that day went. And after that, I got really busy at work, so I did not visit them until it was time for the shower. They had a huge event organized, and I think Vicky must have been in her 3rd trimester, her 7th pregnancy, I'm not sure exactly, but I remember that she was really big and was waddling everywhere. At the party, my dad was really busy socializing with the guests, so Vicky needed somebody to accompany her to the women's room at some point. I was the person sitting closest to her when she needed to go, so she asked me to walk with her. I was a little skeptical and I asked her if she wanted me to get her mother or maybe her sister to accompany her, but she specifically told me that she wanted me, and I was not going to say no to a pregnant woman, so I agreed. I did not think much of it and I walked with her to the women's room. After she was done, she was coming out. She tripped on the stairs that led to the floor. The women's room had a tiny little staircase with 5 steps leading up to the door, and that's where she tripped and almost fell. But I intervened just in time and prevented her from falling. I thought that she was going to thank me, but instead of that, she started screaming at me and asked if I was crazy. I knew that she was doing this on purpose because I was standing in front of her. There was no way that I could have pushed her or caused her to trip, even if I had wanted to, and the look on her face told me that she was doing this on purpose. She was screaming at me to draw attention to us. It worked. Everybody started looking at us in no time, and then my dad rushed over to her side. He asked her what was going on and why she was screaming at me. Instead of telling him the truth that she was walking down the stairs and she tripped and I saved her, she distorted the story and told him, loud enough for everybody in the room to hear, that I had pushed her down the stairs. I couldn't even believe that this was happening, and I tried to fight and I told him that I had done nothing of the sort. I told him that he could check the security footage if he did not believe me, but unfortunately that area was a blind spot and there was no proof. So, it was just her word against mine, and I already knew that I was screwed because if it came down to it, I knew that my dad would always pick Vicky over me. So he chose to believe her and he started yelling at me as well. He called me psychotic and told me that he should have kicked me out the day that I tried to attack her. He said that he never should have let me stay with him because he should have guessed that I was mentally unstable. He even accused me of being jealous of Vicky because she was everything that I could never be since she was successful and beautiful and just overall better than me. He said that I was always just trying to turn him against her out of nothing but pure jealousy. He called me a total psycho and told me that he did not want to see me lurking around anymore, so I needed to get out before he called the cops. Everybody else at the party was also giving me really weird looks, and it seemed like everybody was against me at that point. So, instead of trying to argue, I just accepted my fate and left. I was already very humiliated, and I did not want to draw that matter out by trying to fight with my dad. I knew there was no point in talking to him, and he had already said a lot of things. I did not want to hear more of what he thought about me, so I left. And since then, I have not been in touch with my father. I blocked him, and I have been trying to move on with my life. As a matter of fact, I have not been in touch with anybody else from my family either because I know exactly what they think of me now. It was difficult at first, but I had already detached myself from my father emotionally a long time ago, so I came to terms with it pretty quickly. I have not heard from him for a couple of months, and I never thought that he would reach out to me again. But a week ago, He called me from a different number and told me that he needed my help. I could not imagine what he would require my help for, and I was curious to know, so I agreed to meet him for lunch one day. When we met, he seemed very upset about something, and after I spoke to him, I understood. Apparently, he had begun to suspect that the baby was not his soon after Vicky gave birth. It was the skin color and features that gave it away, because he was slightly darker and did not look Caucasian. My dad is white and so is Vicky, so it was pretty unlikely that they would end up with a baby with a darker skin tone. Vicky tried to convince him for weeks that the baby was his, but eventually, she just gave up and told him the truth instead because there was no point in lying to him anymore. He had already figured it out, and he just needed to hear it from her. But apparently, Vicky had been hooking up with a coworker around the time that she got pregnant. She had not anticipated that the baby would be his because they had only gotten together a couple of times, and after that, he moved away, so she did not get to meet him again. She had just assumed that the baby would be my father's, but now that it was not true, she could no longer lie about it. When my father found out the truth, he moved out of the house and started living away from her. I was quite surprised because of everything. I had always believed that at least they would be there for each other in a lot of things, but I had never taken her for a cheater, although I can't say that I'm surprised because a terrible person is always just an overall terrible person. My dad told me that he had not even bothered to try and reach out and talk to him after he left the house, and he had finally come to the conclusion that since he was not going to reach out to him and he was not sure that he would be able to forgive her even if she did talk to him, the best thing for him to do was get a divorce. He said that he was not happy about it, but it was the only thing that he would do. I felt bad for him, but was not sure any of this had anything to do with me. I thought maybe he was going to apologize for treating me badly all my life and try to be a better father, but I was wrong. Obviously, he was only talking to me because he wanted me to be his lawyer for free. I don't even know why I had assumed that he would want to apologize to me. He's obviously not the type. He doesn't even think that he did anything wrong. Anyway, I told him I wouldn't do anything for him for free, and the best I could do for him was put him in touch with my coworkers and ask them to do this for him, but I was not going to do anything for him. I was not obligated to help him out, and I was even offering to put him in touch with my coworkers as a favor. I was not even obliged to do that. The only reason I said that was because I did not want to get involved in this case myself. I told him that I was not willing to get involved and wished him luck, but he actually got upset with me. He started fighting with me at the restaurant where we were having lunch that day and started accusing me of being ungrateful and told me that I was being a brat. Right now, I thought it was really unfair of him to accuse me of any of that because he had treated me really badly all my life and had never bothered to build a relationship with me. He had even gone to the extent of calling me mentally unstable and jealous of Vicky, so I had no reason to help him at this point. The only reason he approached me was because he thought I was going to do something for him for free. He then reminded me that he had been the one who had paid for me to get my degree, so I owed this to him. And then I decided to remind him that he had only agreed to do so because he thought that I was going to pay him back, so it was not as if he was doing me a favor. He literally demanded that I help him out, but I just laughed in his face and I walked out of the restaurant. Since then, he and my family have been relentlessly trying to get me to talk to him and keep trying to guilt trip and manipulate me into helping him out. I don't even understand what to do right now. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my father for free after he cut me off and chose to believe my stepmom instead? Update 1. Hey, so I have decided to cut my father off and also block all my relatives. It was getting way too toxic for me, and they were constantly trying to pressure me into agreeing to help my father out. I just told them that if they really want to help him out, maybe they should find him a lawyer instead of trying to bother me, and then I blocked all of them. I had only let them have access to me so far because they haven't exactly done anything wrong to me, or so I believed. But not standing up for me even when I was a child was wrong enough. Everybody let me get bullied and said nothing. But now that my father is getting screwed over, everybody has something to say about it, and they want to defend him. Double standards on another level altogether. But anyway, that's none of my business now, and I just don't care about any of this. I want to continue working peacefully, and I just hope that they stay out of my life now. Update 2. I heard from my cousin, who I'm still on good terms with, that my father has initiated the divorce, and he's going with one of the top divorce lawyers in the country. I know it's going to be expensive, so I can't even understand why he would want to get it done for free. He has the money. He was just not willing to spend it, and he thought that if he could get my services for free, there would be nothing better than that. He didn't even apologize for anything, and he thought I would just let him walk all over me. Well, I earn my own money now, and I don't depend on him for anything, so I am not going to be a doormat for him. Honestly, I'm kind of glad that this is happening to him and Vicky because after the way that they have been treating me my entire life, they totally deserve it. In fact, I'm going to say it, they totally deserve each other as well. They're a match made in heaven. Update 3. Well, from what I've just heard, apparently the divorce is not happening anymore. My dad initiated the divorce about 2 weeks ago, and suddenly, my cousin just reached out to me to let me know that they have decided to work on their marriage and try to get through this. They have canceled the divorce proceedings and are looking for a marriage counselor. I couldn't even stop laughing when I heard that because, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. I can't imagine a self-respecting man who would stay with a woman like that, but I guess my dad doesn't really have any self-respect. I'm just really happy that my cousin is on my side because otherwise, I would not be getting any of the tea from my family. Apparently, I am one of their favorite topics because they constantly keep talking about how ungrateful I am and how I did my father dirty. Nobody deserves a daughter like me, at least not somebody like my father. I agree with them, they certainly don't deserve somebody like me. Update 4. So, it has been almost a year since I last spoke to my father. I have not had any interaction with him since then. From what I know, they have moved away and are raising their son with the help of Vicky and her family. They have relocated to Missouri to have a fresh start, and I'm really happy because this just means that they are far away from me. I recently received my first promotion, and my life is going pretty well. I have not been in touch with anybody from my family except for my cousin. I started dating one of my coworkers, and things are going to develop with him. It has been 6 months, and I feel like we are meant to be already. We have had a discussion about this, and he also feels the same way towards me, so I know that this is not one-sided. This is the first time I actually felt loved by somebody, and I feel giddy even talking about this, but I'm just really happy. It honestly feels like as soon as my dad and Vicky left the state, things started getting better for me. My career is going great, I have a boyfriend, and I have friends who love me. Maybe I don't have a family, but my cousin is enough for me. Honestly, I'm doing really well, and that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for showing so much concern about my situation and asking for updates even 1 year later. It just goes to show how sometimes people you don't even know care more about you than your own family. Thank you so much for all that you guys have sent to me. I'll never forget about any of this. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My husband started sleeping with my mom 4 months after our wedding. He blamed me for my dad's death. Then they said they're in love and want to start a family. I, 21F, have been married to my husband, 33M, for a year and 3 months now. We got together when I was 18 and he was 30, while I was a senior in high school. To a lot of people, our relationship is taboo. However, I've always been very mature for my age, and it's always felt normal to both of us. My mother, 40F, has always had a soft spot for him, which I appreciated. When she first met him, she told me I was so lucky to have an amazing person in my life. Throughout our relationship, my mom and he got along fine, which I've always thought may just be from their somewhat closeness in age. However, during our wedding is when I started noticing weird behavior from my mom. On my wedding day, she told me she wished she was the one in the gown today, referring to my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant, and she just started laughing, saying she's had too much to drink. She also suggested her and my husband have a dance together during my wedding. I immediately laughed because I thought it was a joke. However, now with the current circumstances, it was clearly not a joke. Further down the line, she would start asking me how he was in bed. I told her I didn't feel comfortable talking to her about that, and she said that my aunt was curious. She also started asking my husband sexual questions like, what was his favorite position? What are his kinks? Had he ever had a threesome? Genuinely uncomfortable questions that made me grossed out. My suspicions specifically grew throughout the last 3 months. My husband told me my mom asked him to renovate her kitchen. He works in construction, and he would be over there after work, Monday to Wednesday. When I offered to join him, he said it wasn't necessary and that it would be boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should join as well, She said I was being a nagging wife for asking to come over. However, when he started to visit my mom, I noticed sexual changes in our relationship, as when he would come home from work or my mom's, he would never be interested in doing it. My suspicions grew further when I visited my mom's place and the kitchen looked the same as before. When I confronted both of them, they said they were still just prepping for the renovation. In this moment, I knew something was wrong. I had an urge to know, so I left work early and decided to go by my mom's place and see what was happening. When I arrived, I wanted to see what they were up to naturally and didn't want them to be alarmed that I was there. Luckily, my mom's place has a lot of windows, and you can see nearly every room in the house if you just wander around. When I got to the study's window, that's when I saw my husband and mother having sex on her desk. I screamed and cried. When they saw me, my mom looked down in complete disbelief while my husband ran out of the room. I wasn't there long but ran to my car and drove off, hyperventilating. When I got home, I just started to pack some clothes and essentials and wanted to leave. I drove off, and my phone started blowing up from my husband, mother, and auntie, assuming she knew. I drove to an empty car park and sat there for over 4 hours, just crying and listening to music. I decided to return to my husband and I's home as the tears I let go turned into complete anger and distrust. I wanted to confront him. When I arrived home, he was not there, and there was also no sign he had been at our place. I decided that I needed some sleep and thought that maybe he had just stayed in a motel for the night to give me space. When I woke up the next day, I was going to call him. However, I thought to myself that I wasn't ready to speak to him. So I called back my auntie, and she told me that he stayed over at my mother's house to be there for her. My mouth dropped, and I couldn't even say a single word. My auntie had to keep asking if I was there. I told her if she could set up a meeting with myself, my husband, and my mother, and she said she'll pick me up and take me to my mom's house to talk. When my auntie picked me up, she said that my mother told her about their affair, and she told her to stop. My mother lied to her, saying she had ended it straight after I caught them. She said my mother told her she'd been still seeing him and that I'd found out. I told my auntie I was disappointed she didn't tell me and that she's lost my trust. She seemed to have understood that and complied. When we got to their house, my husband had his arm around my mother while she had her head rested on his shoulder. Keep in mind, I caught them a day ago. My mother started crying as soon as she saw me and started hugging my husband. That, in itself, aggravated me. To keep this from not going any longer, they told me that they want to be together and they hope one day I'll accept them. I literally couldn't even feel anything, so I just started laughing in shock. Even my auntie told my mom she was being ridiculous. They claimed that they've been in love for a year now, and they started sleeping with each other 4 months after my husband and I got married. The craziest claim was that my mother said she sees herself starting a family with him. After they told me everything, I sat in silence for a few minutes and my mom pleaded that I say something. Couldn't. I asked my auntie in that moment to take me home, and she got her keys and got me out of there immediately. As soon as I got in the car, she hugged me, and I started bawling. She said everything was going to be okay and that she was there for me no matter what. She offered that I stay with her, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since that all happened, and I've been at home alone, just crying and drinking. I even had some really dark thoughts that honestly terrified me to the point I was going to check myself into the hospital. The worst part is that a part of me wishes I never saw them and lived completely oblivious to their affair. I don't have any friends or anyone in my life. The only person I had was my husband, and now that's gone. My mother and I have always had problems in the past, as she blamed my father's suicide on me and even faked a suicide note from him saying it was my fault when I was 12. In a way, I think this is her way of getting back at me for my dad, as she truly believes that I was the reason he decided to end his life because I was an angry tween. My husband sees my mother as forbidden fruit, which is something that I believe men crave, which is why majority of the time they're the ones that cheat. I am now alone and, to be honest, have no clear direction for what's next for me. My husband and I agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which is something I wanted as well. I don't have any interest in college and have never considered what kind of profession would interest me. I've always just wanted to be a mom and a loving wife and expected that to become my reality. I'm also not smart at all and have no idea what to do legally from here, So any advice on that would be great. I'm sorry this is so long, as a lot happened and I wanted to provide as much details to my situation as possible. I would never return to social media. In the past, I'd go to my husband, but that's now changed, and I didn't have anyone else. Any advice or just thoughts would be appreciated. Update 1. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that provided helpful feedback. While I didn't get to everyone, I did read every comment. Now I feel as though I have to clarify some things. 1. The post is not fake. I don't think I would be able to write better than what I wrote. The story also isn't fake. I really wish it was. This stuff does happen, and yes, I've gone to Reddit about it as I don't have any friends or anyone I can trust, which leads me to my next point. 2. The reason I don't have friends is that when I was in 6th grade, my friends dropped me when my dad killed himself. They all considered me weird for having a dad that died in that sort of way and gossiped about me, and it was considered social suicide to be friends with me. I also developed an ED through body issues that were instilled in me by my mom's boyfriends at the time, and this lasted from late middle school all the way up to early senior year. This led to me being in the hospital a lot and missing out on a lot of school, which made it hard for me to make friends. When I was at school, everyone had their groups, and so I would just eat alone. 3. I do not trust my auntie. My mom and her are very close. They both ran away from home together when my mom was 17 and she was 18. They were raised by strict Pakistani immigrants who were very abusive and cut my mother off when they learned she was with my father, who was white. Since then, they have only had each other. They will always put each other's best interest first. She also has a special needs son in a small place, so living there would be a huge burden for her. 4. I'm sorry I called myself mature for my age. I've just been told that by teachers and pretty much all adults throughout my life since I was 5 years old. There was a point I was 2 grades ahead. However, my mom decided to put me back in the grade people my age were in for a reason she still struggles to explain to me. 5. My relationship, I get, was not normal. He approached me at a mall while I was out and asked for my number, and he thought I was a lot older than what I was. He found out halfway through our first date I was 18 and still in school, and he wanted to end it there. However, I really liked him and said we could go for a second date, and we can decide together if we want to keep doing this. We both connected really well and opened up to each other like we'd never done to anyone else. We decided we'd start off as friends, and if we end up being comfortable, we can pursue a relationship. I was the one who first told him I wanted a relationship. He was very hesitant and didn't want to because he was worried what people would think. He even told me no at one point, and a week later we reconciled, and he told me that he loved me and he couldn't stand the idea of not being with me. The only red flag I could see was that he was divorced and that he had a son he barely saw. However, that's due to his ex and son now living in a different state. My husband is a child of Albanian immigrants, and he claimed that him and his ex-wife only really shared that in common. Otherwise, there was no real love between them. 6. I'm not going to college for the sake of going to college. I want to be a mom and that's all. However, I will look for a job to support myself in the meantime, as the flower shop will not be sustainable. Besides, I think I've lost that job as I haven't gone to 3 of my shifts and have been dodging their calls as to why I haven't been in. Now finally, the update. Basically, a night after I posted this, my husband came banging on our door. He made a mistake and he was crying. He insisted that my mother was blackmailing him into being with her and that it was only supposed to be a hookup, and he instantly regretted it. When I found out, he panicked and didn't want to have no one, so he agreed to be with my mom. I let him inside and he showed me all of the texts between him and my mom, and a lot of it was my mom telling him to come over, and if he refused, she would threaten that she would spill it to me that they were having an affair. He told me he wants us to be together again and he'll do anything for us to be together. I told him I needed space for now and that he needs to leave. He started to get very reluctant and even started getting scary where he picked up a TV and broke it and started punching himself. When I said that, I genuinely started to get scared and told him that I didn't want him doing something stupid. So I called his friend over and he took him to his place to calm him down. The next morning, I woke up to him cooking in our kitchen, and he made me my favorite breakfast. He told me that he wanted to surprise me with something he knew I loved. I told him I appreciated it, but he needs to leave and that if I were to forgive him, it was going to take a long time and that this wasn't going to be fixed overnight. He started crying again, and he told me that he can't stay on this earth if he knows that it's not with me. I'm not that naive. I know I'm being manipulated. So I told him to get out and that this will take time. That's when he got a frying pan and threw it at the wall. I pushed him out and locked the door. I told him to not come back and I'll see him when I'm ready. Later that day, my mother comes and screams outside my door that she knows my husband is here and that I'm stopping them from being together. I told her to leave, otherwise I'm calling the cops, and she did. However, when I walked outside later the day, it's clear she keyed my car and tried to spell out a derogatory word against women. I called the cops and they told me without footage they can't do anything about it. 2 hours after I called the cops, she came back and again demanded that I let her in. I told her to go again, and that's when she tried to pick the lock to my front door. So I called the cops, and the moment she heard I was speaking to them, she drove off. I started to feel unsafe where I was and didn't have anywhere to go. So basically, I grabbed a bunch of clothes and necessities and took them to my car, and well, have been living in there since. I don't know what I'm going to do as of now and just hope that I find something. It hasn't been too bad and it's been sustainable for the past day and a bit, but obviously I can't do this forever. My husband did message me saying he came over and has been waiting at our house and is worried that I haven't returned. I told him that he shouldn't be there anyways because I told him I needed space, but I told him that I'm staying in my car until I decided what I want to do. He sent me a bunch of voice messages crying, saying I'm torturing myself and that if we're together, he'll make sure to take care of me this time. I haven't responded to any of the voice messages directly, however. I am sending him just an update every 4 to 5 hours saying I'm okay just so he doesn't panic completely. My auntie hasn't contacted me really since I cried in her car, but as mentioned, she has a lot on her plate, so I don't particularly blame her or anything. But that's the update. I'm homeless in a car and have no real direction. I did want to thank you all for the legal advice and will hopefully find a time to get sorted on that. I also have a GP appointment tomorrow with a doctor about STDs, so fingers crossed that all goes well. I'm sure I'll find something. However, for now it's a bit rough for me. Update 2. I don't know if you guys want another update after this one because I'm sure there will be more that will happen later on. However, I feel like this would practically become a diary. I'm glad to announce I'm not in a car anymore and I'm living in a women's shelter. An hour after I posted my last update, a man was following my car, and he looked really nervous, like he was contemplating something. He was doing this for about 35 to 40 minutes. I even tested by going down no-through roads and stuff, and he would follow me in and out of them. So I followed the advice you guys gave and went to a women's shelter. I had to get questioned by someone, and I essentially just explained that I didn't feel safe going home as my husband did smack my head while I was kicking him out, and he and my mother have been harassing me. They didn't really do much follow-up after that, and they were really nurturing with settling me in, and a lot of the women introduced themselves to me. I haven't been in such a supportive environment before. In fact, this may sound dumb as it's a literal shelter, but I don't want to leave. I've made a lot of friends in the last 4 or so days, and I feel genuinely happy. I've made this one really good friend who is the exact same age as me. She told me she's staying here as her stepdad is really violent, and the amount of bruises she has is really saddening. It made me cry when she started to explain to me how she received every bruise she got. We even got to talking about finding somewhere to live together, which has made me really excited. I've also made a lot of other friends from a lot of diverse backgrounds and situations that have really opened my world. As to my husband, he recently sent me a text that has made me assured that I don't want to ever see him again. He told me that if I didn't get back together with him, I'd have another suicide on my hands. He knows how my mother faked the situation and everything and how much pain that put me through at a young age. I told him this was it and that I'm done with him completely. He proceeded to call me a W, like my mom, and that my dad would be rolling in his grave seeing how I turned out. He also confessed about 30 minutes after sending the text he'd be sleeping with other women as well as my mom and said that they provided more for him than what I ever could. I simply told him to go ruin one of their lives instead. I won't lie and act tough. I feel completely hurt and manipulated that this man did this to me. I know everyone will say I should have seen it coming, but I really thought we had something special. I was crying throughout all of this, and luckily, the friends I've made at the shelter were there for me and took care of me. I believe if they weren't there with me throughout all of this, I would have done something stupid. So thank you guys as well for encouraging the shelter. That really means a lot to me. My mom recently posted a story of her in a bikini and she wrote, "Love hurts." I simply wrote back the laughing emojis as it's clear she's looking for not only male attention but sympathy. Knowing her, she will twist the situation to make herself the victim and me as the bad guy, such as my father ending his life. I really think I'm done with this woman as it's exhausting even trying with her anymore. My whole life she's been a victim, and the problem is everyone around her treats her like one. My auntie always says to me I shouldn't be too hard on her as she's been through so much. What about me? What about all the stuff she's put me through? Sure, she's had it hard, but why does it make it okay for her to make my life a living hell? Well, to make it even more perfect, she messaged me back after I sent the laughing emojis. She told me that she was allowed to mourn her relationship with my husband and I couldn't make a sacrifice even if it meant her being happy, and how this is her first real connection since my dad. I sent back the laughing emoji again. She proceeded to post the interaction on her story and proceed to post a quote or something saying, "If only our kids understood that they can hurt us." I simply blocked her after that. Speaking of my auntie, also radio silence from her. I tried messaging her to tell her I was in a shelter just in case she was worried. However, before I even told her, she said she couldn't talk. She was at brunch. Considering she knows my situation, you would expect she would drop brunch to find out if I'm okay. She also didn't message me back after. I am tempted to go to my cousin's wedding though, which both my mother and auntie are attending, and exposing them to my conservative family. However, I am not that selfish to ruin someone's wedding just to get back at someone. I realized I would just be my mom doing that. I also reached out to my grandma in Tennessee, Dad's side. I was hesitant in messaging her as I haven't seen her since I was 15 and we only message happy birthday to each other and that's it. I asked if I could stay with her and told her my situation. However, she said I could stay for a week. After that I'm on my own. She does have 3 of her sons still living at home and they all are big man children. So she said things are already tight around here, so me coming wouldn't help. Anyways, that's the update. I'm in the shelter, and I'm planning to find a place with this girl. I'm also going to figure out legalities sometime. I've just been really busy. I also had to reschedule my GP appointment to next week as just a lot has been happening. Thank you guys so much for reading this, and if anything really significant happens, I'll let you guys know. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I caught my BF and best friend cheating on me at her wedding, and all our friends knew. So, I exposed them during the wedding speech, causing her fiancé to leave her at the altar. When I was in college, I was a part of a pretty tight-knit group of friends from my department, and over the years we have stayed in touch. There are 7 of us, 4 guys and 3 girls. One of the girls, let's call her Elaine, was my college roommate, and we were literally inseparable. She's been my best friend since our college days, and recently, I attended her wedding, which is where everything went wrong. Out of this group, I've also been dating one of the guys for the past 8 years. Let's call him Nick. For context, it was Nick who was originally closer to these people, but after we started dating, I kind of became a part of the group as well, and along with me, so did Elaine. We started dating when we were in our 2nd year. I was 20 back then, and for the past 8 years we have grown together. We've had a few rough patches, but we've always managed to make it through. For the past year, I've been talking to him about getting married, but he has been telling me that he isn't ready yet. I find it really bizarre because both of us are pretty sorted on the work front, and we have even been living together for the past 4 years. So, I really don't understand why it's such a big deal to get married. I value my professional life, but I also want to get married and start a family. Nick and I have been bickering a lot over that in the past few months. He thinks that I'm rushing it, which doesn't even make sense because we've literally been together for 8 years. He's also been claiming that I need to focus more on my work, which also doesn't make sense because I make more money than anyone else I know, and I've been running my dad's office supplies company for the past 2 years. Lots of women do extremely well career-wise while being married with kids, and I'm ready to do it. So, I really didn't think that he had a point, and I knew that he was just refusing to get married because he didn't want to commit to me in spite of being with me for 8 years, and I was very upset about that. So, we have been fighting about this quite frequently for the past few months, but even then, We haven't broken up in spite of the problems we had been having in our relationship. Given his behavior, it didn't even occur to me that he might have been cheating on me because he had been completely normal otherwise. Either he would apologize to me or I would. But at the end of the day, I thought that we would always find our way back to each other. But I don't think that's the case anymore because of Elaine's wedding. I realized that he had probably been cheating on me for God knows how long, and the cherry on top was that he had been cheating on me with my best friend. The bitter truth is, I found out about it just a couple of days ago when I saw them for myself, making out in the parking lot in my car of all the places they could have picked. But instead of just confronting them then and there, I decided to go the theatrical way and humiliated her publicly. For context, Nick and I had driven to the hotel where Elaine was getting married the day before the wedding, and in the evening we were supposed to attend the rehearsal dinner. But I was really tired from the journey, and I also got really bad migraines sometimes, so I decided to skip it. Later in the evening, my migraines started to get worse, and since I had forgotten my meds while packing, I had to go out to buy some. That's how I ended up in the parking lot because I didn't want to walk and saw them going at it. I think I was there for about 45 seconds, and as soon as I figured out what was going on in the car, I just turned around and started walking away because I had no idea what to do about what I had just seen. I don't think they spotted me because they were too busy with each other, and I got lucky. By then, the rehearsal dinner was already over, so I decided to go to one of my friends' rooms so I could at least talk to them about what I had just seen, hoping that maybe they would be able to comfort me and I would find the courage to confront Elaine and Nick when they finally came back. But instead, when I made my way to my friend's room, I heard a bunch of voices from the inside, and I realized that our group was sitting inside anyway. Coincidentally, they were already talking about Nick and Elaine. Not only were they talking about them, they were all actually laughing behind my back about how clueless I was about all of this. So they had known. They had known all along, and they had been covering up for the two of them. The only other girl in the group, my friend Kate, made some joke about how they were going to get caught one of these days because of all the sneaking around that they had been doing, even during the wedding prep. Apparently, they had even hooked up when I had gone home early at the engagement party. All of them found this very fun to talk about, and I was horrified at how casually they were discussing everything as if my feelings did not matter to them at all. So, I just walked away from the door, and luckily, they hadn't noticed me lurking either, probably because they had all had a little too much to drink. I think that day was pretty much the worst one of my life, but even then, after I went back to my room and cried for about 15 minutes, I decided not to let anything show because I had already started formulating my plan, and I knew that I was going to teach these people a lesson of a lifetime. So, when Nick finally came back to the room, I pretended like everything was normal, and we went to sleep without any discussion. The next day, the day of the wedding, I greeted everybody normally, and everything was going fine until I decided to stand right before the ceremony was supposed to start, and in front of all the guests, I said that I wanted to make a speech in my friend's honor. That's not how traditionally things are done, so obviously there were some strange looks, but I guess Elaine thought I was going to make some heartfelt speech about how I was going to miss her or whatever, so she allowed it. It was a pretty big mistake on her part because then I went on to talk about whatever I had seen the previous evening and also brought up what I had overheard our friends talking about in their room later about the events at the engagement party while they were chilling and talking behind my back. At least at that point, all of them had the good sense to look ashamed, but I don't care about them that much. I only cared about how Nick and Elaine were going to react to my speech, and of course, as soon as they realized what was going on, they tried to get me to stop. It was much easier for Nick since he was right beside me, and he started trying to get me to sit down and shut up as if that was going to help the situation. Elaine totally flipped out and just started accusing me of being jealous of her, telling me that I was trying to ruin her wedding on purpose because my boyfriend wouldn't propose to me, so I was trying to steal her thunder. But I guess she oversold that whole act and got a little too defensive, so her fiancé ended up actually believing me, and then he walked off from the stage. When she realized that she had been left at the altar, she started running after him, and the whole situation descended into pandemonium. But I couldn't care less about any of that. I just shook Nick off of me, made my way to the parking lot where I already packed my stuff and stashed my bags before the ceremony, and then I drove back home. 3 days have passed since then, and for the first 2 days I didn't hear from anyone, but yesterday, Nick told me that he and Elaine had been wrong, but what I had done was just downright psychotic because apparently I didn't just ruin the wedding, but I also destroyed her life. Now her parents don't want anything to do with her, and her fiancé has already dumped her. So she's just broke and homeless because apparently she had been counting on this wedding to help her out financially. If you catch my drift, for a less subtle explanation, let me just say that she's a total gold digger, and this wedding had been a total sham right from the beginning. She and her fiancé didn't meet through their parents earlier this year like they had been telling everyone, but actually met each other on a dating app. Her fiancé is 6 whole years older than her and had an ultimatum from his parents that he could either get married and settle down or he could continue fooling around with a new woman every week. In that way, he could count on getting himself disinherited by his parents and everything would go to his brother instead. So, for that reason, he was willing to find somebody, but in reality, he had no interest in getting married, and so far, he had been looking for somebody who would be okay with the idea of an open marriage but had been unlucky. That was until he met Elaine on the dating app, and she figured out a way that this could work for both of them. She wasn't too keen on the idea of getting married either, but she had been unemployed for about a year, and she had tried her hand at a bunch of stuff, but she just couldn't find anything to keep herself interested for more than 2 to 3 months. All she really wanted was to marry somebody rich and be done with it, and lucky for her, her fiancé's family was pretty rich. I guess you guys can understand where I'm going with this. After a couple of dates, they realized that this would be the best way to solve both their problems, and for a while, everything was sorted. But then I made that speech exposing her at the wedding, and of course, since their parents had no idea about their personal arrangement, her fiancé had to leave because there was no way that his parents were going to approve of him marrying a woman like that, especially after her friend had humiliated the entire family in front of so many people. So, even if their arrangement had been convenient, it wasn't going to work anymore, and they had to call the whole thing off. She had been staying with her fiancé for the past couple of months and hadn't been doing anything productive since she had even quit the last sales job that she had. And now after the whole fiasco wedding, even her parents won't take her back in, so she has nowhere to go, and it's not like it's going to be easy for her to find a job either because she's not really qualified, and even if she does find something, it's probably going to be something very low-paying. So now I'm being accused of ruining her life by being insensitive because Nick thinks I should have just confronted them in person instead of publicly humiliating the two of them and creating so much trouble for her. Even our friends don't want to speak to either of them anymore, and she's in big trouble right now. And for some reason, he expects me to feel bad about all this right now. Anyway, I don't really particularly feel bad for Elaine, and neither do I think that her life has been destroyed. All she has to do is just find a job and stick to it and do something for herself instead of relying on other people. I don't think it's a bad thing. If anything, I've probably done her a favor. But what I do feel kind of iffy about is humiliating both families publicly because I'm sure that the kind of speech that I made did not reflect too well on either of them, and I've met Elaine's parents, and they're really nice people, so that's the only part of whatever Nick told me that really stuck with me, and I feel kind of bad about that part. I feel like I could have just done away with the whole public humiliation thing and confronted them privately, broken up with Nick, and let all of this go in a healthy way, but now I've created all this drama, and I feel weird about it. So, AITA for publicly humiliating my best friend and her family at her wedding because she and my boyfriend had been hooking up with each other? Edit. I truly have no idea how long this has been going on. The only information I have is whatever I overheard when I was lurking outside the room where my friends were talking about this whole thing. They were mostly just making jokes and saying stupid stuff. The only thing of note that they said was that thing about the engagement party. I had left early because again I had a migraine and it's not surprising. It usually does happen if I spend too long in a really loud environment. It's just a thing that I have, and I've seen a lot of doctors about it, and I'm on meds for it, but I do need a lot of rest, so I do have to go home early quite often. Since a lot of our friends are usually there, I've never thought that it would be fair to ask Nick to come back home with me, so he comes back later. Until recently, I never had a reason to be suspicious of how late he would come back home. But now I'm beginning to think that this whole thing had probably been going on for a long time, and I just had no idea. It's fine, though. It's over now, and they can keep hooking up to their heart's content. Although I don't think that Nick is the kind of guy that Elaine would genuinely want to spend the rest of her life with because for starters, he's not even as rich as she wants her men to be, and if they end up together, he's definitely going to expect her to work because he's not fine with being the primary breadwinner since that's a lot of pressure for him, his words not mine. And I used to think that it was quite an admirable quality, but I don't think Elaine will feel the same way. And then I don't think Nick is going to be able to tolerate her because she's a much bigger drama queen than me. Anyway, that's their problem now. Update 1. Hi. It's been 2 days since I posted, and I haven't replied to Nick's message about whatever happened with Elaine. I'm not sorry. I don't have to feel bad about anything because I was upset about something. I reacted in a harsh way and that's it. If that reflects badly on other people, that's hardly my problem. It must have hurt her parents, but honestly, I can't say that I'm too sorry about that because even though they were good people, Elaine was obviously not a good person, and she totally deserved what I did, and I'm not in the mood to apologize to anyone, not even her parents. So, I'm staying out of it for now. I did text Nick back though, but that was only to tell him that he needs to come by soon and collect all his things so he can get the heck out of here. Obviously, now that we are no longer together, I don't want him staying in my house anymore, and I really couldn't stand the sight of all his things just lying about. So, I gathered all of it, packed it into some boxes, and I have kept it aside so when he does come by, he can just grab those boxes and get out and we don't end up wasting any time. He is the only person I haven't blocked yet because I need to know when he's going to come by. After that's done, I'm going to block him as well. But the rest of my friends have already been blocked, and of course Elaine was the first one that I blocked. Now that some time has passed since the incident, all the emotions have started to hit me, and I've been feeling really upset about everything. I wasn't just betrayed by one person. I was betrayed by my boyfriend, my best friend, and all these people who I thought were my family since that's just how close our group was. Naturally, I've been very emotional about that, but thankfully my biological family has been by my side, and they have been very supportive. They've been dropping by for the past couple of days to take care of me and, more importantly, make sure that I'm taking care of myself. I'm really grateful for that because at least I have some people who are looking out for me. Update 2. Hi, so today, almost 9 days after the incident, Nick texted me in the morning and told me that he would be coming by in the evening to collect his things. I was fine with that, and since he hadn't made any attempts to contact me in the past 9 days, I had assumed that when he showed up, he would probably just take his things and leave. But instead, when he came by and I started handing over the boxes to him, he told me that he wanted to look through the house in case I had missed anything. I was a bit skeptical about that because for that I would have to let him in, and it sounded like it was going to be a tedious process. But then again, I couldn't refuse because I might have missed something, and I wanted to finish this task in one go itself, so I allowed him to come in. He looked through the house and took a few more things that I had missed, and I thought that was going to be it, that he would just take those things, put them in the boxes, and leave. But instead, he started loitering in the living room holding those things, and it was getting really awkward. So, I had to ask him if he was going to leave or not, and then he told me that he really wanted to talk to me and he had hoped that this time around I would be more open to addressing the problem since quite some time had passed. It was quite infuriating because he was speaking to me as if several years had passed since the incident when in reality, it hadn't even been 2 weeks. Also, I don't feel like I had to address any problems with him. He cheated on me with my best friend who was about to get married, and that was it. They were the problems, not me. So, I told him that I had been very clear with him when I had texted him, and I had told him that he was only welcome here as long as he needed to collect his things. Now that he had done that, there was no need for him to talk to me or stay around anymore. But he started arguing with me, telling me that even though he had cheated, it wasn't like I was completely perfect and I needed to stop acting as if this was entirely his fault. Until then, I had been curt with him, but I had still been trying to keep my cool, even though I was getting more irritated with every passing second. Then, finally, when he said that, I totally lost it, and I started screaming at him because I couldn't believe that he had the audacity to imply that any of this might have been my fault. I'm ready to acknowledge the fact that I'm not a perfect person, not by any means, but the way he said it, I knew he was implying that I had somehow driven him to cheat on me. And even before he started arguing back, I knew what he was going to say. Like I had mentioned in my original post, we had already been having some problems because I wanted to settle down. I wanted to get married and start a family soon, but he was not ready for that. I knew that he was going to bring that up because I had been thinking about it myself for a couple of days already, although in a different way, one where I was the victim. But in his opinion, he was the real victim, and he was not ready to commit since it was a pretty big deal, and he thought that it was going to be a bad decision for him because he wanted to live his life a little before he got married and started a family. For the past 8 years, he has only ever been with me. We have only ever done things with each other in mind, and apparently he felt like he doesn't even know who he is, which is somehow supposed to be my fault. I couldn't believe that he thought that these were valid points because if he had really had such a huge problem with committing to me even after 8 years of being together, then clearly we had very different opinions and we wanted very different things from life. So, the only two ways to have dealt with that were to either keep talking about it and try to come to a common ground or just break up. But he chose to cheat on me so he could have the best of both options, so he could do whatever he wanted to while keeping me around as his backup. And somehow I was a terrible person for not being okay with something like that. The whole victim playing thing and pretending as if we were both equally at fault here made me so mad that I ended up screaming myself hoarse at him. But even then, he just kept arguing and trying to defend himself, saying that he was under a lot of stress because of me, and Elaine apparently just got him somehow in a way that I never did. I even kept asking him to leave, but he wouldn't go away, and he kept saying that I needed to understand that I was not a perfect person, and I had been just as toxic as he had. I would have called the cops on him, but unfortunately, I was so worked up that it didn't even occur to me. But anyway, after a while, I was so totally done with the conversation that I went to the door, opened it, and just stood beside it silently while he still kept trying to defend himself. It took him several minutes to get the hint, and it was really difficult for me not to say anything while he was coming up with nonsensical arguments to defend himself. But I just stayed silent and stood beside the open door waiting for him to get out. Finally, he did go, but even then, he told me that I could pretend to be a saint all I wanted to. But deep down, both of us knew that it took two people to ruin this relationship. And I totally agree, it did take two people. It took him and Elaine, but I didn't say that. It would have just started up another whole thing, and I didn't have the time or energy for that. So, he walked out, I shut the door, and finally started trying to calm down because talking to him had really riled me up. Even when we were together, he did have a lot of difficulty in admitting when he was wrong. But back then, I used to find it kind of endearing, but today it was just the worst thing ever, and I'm really happy that he left when he did because otherwise I think I might have thrown something at him. Anyway, that's done now. He's gone, and I'm just really relieved. I've blocked him already, and now I'm going to spend more time focusing on myself because I think I really need it. I've already started going to the gym more often since it really helps me stay distracted. And I'm also journaling. It's going to be baby steps before I finally feel like I'm over everything because after all, regardless of how it ended, it was still an 8-year relationship, so it's definitely going to leave a mark whether I like it or not. All I can keep trying to do is make sure that this mark doesn't bother me too much, I guess. Update 3. Hi. So it's been 2 years since my last update. I've been thinking about posting here for quite some time, and I finally got around to logging in today. So here's an update on how everything is going. On the work front, everything is amazing, even better than before, and I'm very happy. I've also become kind of a fitness freak, and it feels good. I haven't had any contact with those people from college for the past 2 years, and I really don't care how any of them are doing. My family has been there for me every step of the way, taking care of me and making sure that I'm doing well, and that's all that I need. I have very few friends now, just a couple of folks from school and some coworkers, but at least they are good people who genuinely care about me. For the past few weeks, I've also been seeing someone. Dating had been completely off the table for me in the past year or so because I was still dealing with the trauma of my last relationship, but then one of my friends introduced me to his cousin at her birthday party. And he's really sweet, really kind, and I don't know why, I just felt really drawn to him right from the first time that we met. My friend set me up on a date with him, and we've been going out for a while. I told him everything about my last relationship and how long it went on, so I want to take it kind of slow with him before we get serious, and he totally understands that. He respects me and my opinions. And he's so sweet that he's even told me that he's ready to wait, because I seem like the perfect girl for him. We're also on the same page about marriage and kids. He wants that just as much as I do, and I think I finally found somebody who is right for me. At least I'm much happier than Nick and Elaine, who got married a couple of months after my last update, but they couldn't even make their marriage work for a year. They ended up getting divorced within a year, and I found out about it from one of my old acquaintances from college who's a bit of a gossip. I can't say that I feel bad for them at all since that would be a total and blatant lie, but I do hope that this serves as a good lesson to them, and they don't end up screwing over other people in the future as they did to me, although they are pretty horrible, so they might. Anyway, that being said, I feel like I'm truly over whatever happened. And yeah, happy. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My cousin's husband kept staring at me and did something. When I told my family about it, they said I was lying and now they're all blocking me, so I had to confront him. I, 23F, have lived with my cousin Rose and her husband Dumbo, both 33. For over a year for economical reasons. We have had a lot of issues, but I could handle them. 6 months ago, I began to realize that Dumbo was looking at me more. I've always been sure to wear appropriate clothing in front of him, and I've never even been without a bra outside of my room. Even so, I noticed that his eyes were constantly going to other places like my boobs, ass, or more below. I thought that it was just my imagination, but just in case, I started wearing oversized hoodies and sweatpants around the house, nothing body-fitting. But I still noticed that when we would have conversations, he would deliberately stare at other places. One night, as I was lying on the couch laughing at a video on my phone, he came up to me, asked what I was laughing at, and before I could answer, he bent down and put his head on my boobs at an angle he could look at the phone screen. I was in shock, and I am ashamed that I just let it happen. That's when I knew I had to tell someone, especially my parents, but I didn't have the courage. So I stuck it out. More comments were made, but the one that disgusted me the most was when he said, "Hey, is it me, or have your boobs gotten bigger?" I asked why the hell he was looking at me that way and that he was so off for that, but he just laughed. I got the courage to tell my stepmom and dad, and they were both shocked. They said that I needed to move out ASAP and that I also needed to talk to Rose about Dumbo's behavior, and I would also need to talk to Dumbo. It took a bit of pushing, but I finally got the nerve to sit down with Rose and tell her everything that had happened and that this was the reason I was moving. She said that she would talk to him, but in the end, this was my problem with him and I needed to fix it. I thought that after she spoke to him, he would come to me and apologize or say something at least, but that never happened. 2 days after I told Rose that I was expecting an apology on his behalf and I was going to talk to him myself about everything, she said that would be useless because he said he was never going to talk to me again as he claims he did nothing, and apologizing would mean him owning up to what I claimed happened. She said that both of them were going to wait until my dad was back in town so he could solve everything. He claims that I am just trying to put my family against him and ruin his reputation. I left to go to work after that, but in my mental state, I forgot something, and when I came back, I caught her talking to her mom. They were talking about how they didn't believe anything I had said and that the three of them would tell my parents that I'm trying to divide the family. With 3 people ganging up against me, I am worried that they'll manage to change my parents' mind. I think I screwed up by bringing this whole thing up. I may have just ruined my whole relationship with everyone, possibly ruined a marriage, and in the end, I'm starting to even doubt my own judgment on what could have just been a misunderstanding. I screwed up by not staying quiet. I'll update if it's requested. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Stick to your guns. You don't need anyone who won't stand by you when you tell the truth. You know who they are now. OP. I know the truth, but man, when it's 3 people, including the wife of this Dumbo, trying to bring you down, it's hard. Thanks for your words. Comment 2. You could probably reconstruct when this happened from your phone history if possible. Similarly, figure out the dates and times of other instances of harassment. These things are more convincing when they're documented with times, especially if, for example, they always happen during your cousin's working hours and days. If nothing else, it'll feel good to have it solidly documented and more easily shared if you ever need to do so to defend yourself from accusations of slander. I don't primarily mean legally here, but socially, just in case that's unclear. OP. I only noticed 6 months ago. What I can say for anyone who wants details is that he only does this when my cousin isn't close by, for instance, when she's in the room or bathroom. I have noted down for myself all the situations I have remembered because I wanted to be as sure as possible before bringing to light something this delicate. It's just when it's 3 against 1, you begin to doubt yourself. Update 1, November 2nd, 2024. Well, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that took the time to comment on my last post. It's because of you that I finally saw that I was not screw up, even though now my relationship with basically my whole family is unfortunately the result was not a pretty one. I spoke to my parents, and the whole conversation was just off to begin with. They don't understand why it took me so long to speak up. I tried explaining that for me this is a very sensitive topic, and on top of that I was scared of how everyone would react. Second, it is well known that I usually have a very strong attitude and don't have an issue with telling people to F off or standing up for myself, which in their eyes makes it strange that I wasn't able to do that with Dumbo. Yes, I don't have a problem with doing that to people that have no major impact on my life, and to be honest, even today I'm asking myself why I didn't react this way with him. Although I wanted to, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I also know that if I did, Dumbo and Rose would run off to my parents complaining about how disrespectful I am, and it would have been messy either way. Third, they say things don't add up because in the end I never took their advice, which was to remove myself from the situation, and second, to have a conversation with Rose and Dumbo. I have found a nice place to live as of December 1st, and I spoke to Rose as I honestly didn't want, nor did I feel comfortable speaking to her husband in the beginning. Like I said in the first post, when I told Rose I was going to speak to Dumbo, she said no because he wasn't going to listen, and she agrees that we have nothing to talk about. I explained this to my parents, but they weren't having it. They said that I need to face Dumbo as he is the one causing the issue for me. I told them very clearly that I wasn't going to force him to sit down and listen to me, but according to them, that is exactly what I should be doing. My dad says that at the end of the day, I don't know what Dumbo's intentions were and this won't get solved until he and I talk it out, that a lot of people look at me and it's not that big of a deal. He's angry that I've done nothing to solve this matter myself, and even if I know that Dumbo won't listen, that's not the point. The point is trying. I reminded him that he wasn't just looking, it was constant comments, staring, and putting his head on my boobs. I told him once again that I wasn't going to force a grown man to listen to me, but he kept on saying that I wasted their time by not taking their advice. Finally, my parents ended it by saying that because I haven't been transparent with them and it seems like I basically wasted their time, then that is how they'd like to keep our relationship, with a wall up. I had prepared myself to take a step back from my parents if needed, but the fact that they did it because I wasted their time just hurts. I feel like they went into this convo with the mindset of not believing me, and nothing I could have said would have changed that. Just the fact that they're telling me to force this man that's 10 years older than me to sit down and listen, knowing damn well that because I don't want to be alone with him his wife would have to be there and she'd be jumping down my throat every 2 seconds, is like telling me to flip a hot pancake with no gloves and to try to not get burnt, knowing damn well that I will. He never offered to be moderator. I had a feeling that this would have been the result, so in a way I do feel like I did screw up in the end. Rose and Dumbo are perfectly happy, or so it seems. They both still have a great relationship with my parents. My relationship with all of them is messed up, and I'm feeling pretty depressed. Once I move out completely, I will be in a better mental state. I won't have any toxic people in my life. I'll be saving money as the new place is a lot cheaper, and most importantly, I know that I still have people that love and support me, even if it's very few. Once again, thank you to everyone that gave me words of support on my last post. It means so much. Update 2. November 9th, 2024. I didn't expect to be updating again. I thought that everything had ended when my parents blocked me. But no. Since my last post, my parents still have me blocked, but only on social media. They have been calling me since and telling me that it's up to me to make this right, that basically my entire family is mad at me for trying to destroy the family dynamics, that because I still haven't confronted Dumbo, they all think that I am lying, turning what could have been a simply awkward moment into a big deal so that I could have a proper reason to move out and be independent. According to them, unless I speak to Dumbo face to face, I will have proven their theory of simply lying to get out of the house with anyone questioning it. They have made it clear that they think I have effed up by bringing this to light, and if I choose not to confront Dumbo, they will proceed to have me blocked and will have me marked as a liar. Oh my God. The pressure I have been under to speak to this man has been making me sick at this point. Yes, I could simply block my parents on everything as well, but that wouldn't stop them from showing up to my house, and I'm too much of a coward to do so anyway. Even though I'm freaking out, I have decided to talk to Dumbo tonight once I get the courage to do so, just to get my parents off my back, because I can't handle another phone call with them where they accuse me of being a liar. Deep down, I know I didn't effed up by telling my family about Dumbo harassing me, but I swear to God that if I had known everything that was to come out of this, I would have simply moved out and kept my mouth shut. Any advice is needed, and I deeply appreciate those that personally messaged to check up on me after my first post. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. I am genuinely so sorry this is happening to you. I don't have much in the way of advice, but I hope you know that you're not in the wrong and you're not a bad person for speaking up. Don't let them tell you otherwise. OP. I'm freaking the hell out. I really don't feel comfortable talking to this guy, but on the other hand, if I don't, the only family I have here will basically turn on me. I'm locked in my room till I get the courage and go talk to him. Comment 2. Do not talk to this person alone, but also not with your family. They are and will gang up on you. Please bring an outside friend and record it if you can. You really shouldn't even talk to this person and be moved on to your own place and have everyone blocked. They are not looking out for you. Stay safe and good luck. OP. I'll be recording everything. Update 3, November 10th, 2024. To begin, I'd like to thank all of those that have given me advice and shown support during this hard time. It's given me more strength than you know. I've been asked some questions, so I'll answer a few. 1. Why did I wait 6 months to bring this up? This is a very serious accusation to bring up. I wanted to be absolutely sure that I wasn't imagining anything and that I was sure of this. I was also terrified of how my family would react. 2. Why didn't I speak to Dumbo from the very beginning? I didn't have the courage and didn't know how he'd react, so I went to my parents for guidance. 3. Why didn't I bring this up until after I moved out? Simple. I thought my parents would have my back. Now to the update. After my last post, I spoke to Dumbo. Even though many advised me not to, I caved and I confronted him. I recorded the entire conversation like many suggested and even made sure to send it to a few people just in case. Dumbo was quiet the whole time I spoke and apologized, even though he admits he stands by the fact he did nothing. His wife, my cousin Rose, was laughing, snorting, and making side remarks the whole time. The urge to tell her to F off was big, but I didn't want to make things worse for myself. The conclusion of our talk was this: they don't want to move on from this, but we will be civil. We will keep communication to a minimum until and after I move. He will make sure to never be alone around me, and lastly, that our conversation was basically pointless and that even if I had spoken to him first place like everyone said, he says the results still would have been the same, meaning we would all be divided. I told my parents all of this morning as they wanted to know how the talk went, and even though I told them this was all said by Dumbo, they still said that I was trying to justify my reasons for not wanting to have the conversation with him, and basically, they think I only caved into this to prove that I wasn't lying because in the end, I never showed any signs of abuse or said anything. They have made clear that I have divided the whole family and that it's going to take time for them to heal from the pain and distress I have caused, and that in the future, my family may or may not reach out to me again. After all of this, my biggest screw-up was how I went about this. I should have waited until I was in my new place and away from these people. At least that way, a lot of this could have been avoided. Many have said that because I'm 23, I am old enough to deal with this alone. To those who said this, thank you. I've learned that family will not always be there to back you up. Speaking up will never be a screw-up, but the way you go about things most definitely can be, as you can see here. If I had done, said, or acted in a few different ways, I think the outcome could have been a bit different. In the end, I know I still have people that love and support me. My move-out date is just around the corner, and eventually my mental health will be okay. In the meantime, I will focus on packing and being around those I love. Thank you once again for all your support. This will be my final update. Comments where OP has replied. OP on her parents not believing her at all. You honestly couldn't have said it better. They have their minds set on what they believe. I'm not going to waste my time trying to change it. It's been shown that no matter what happens, they find a way to make this my fault. Comment 1. The way your parents still found a way to turn what Dumbo said as you making excuses for yourself is incredible. Unfortunately, family won't always stand by you, and I'm so sorry you've had to go through this. At least there are still people that love you. I'm sure you haven't had time to properly process this whole show. But please, once you move out and settle in, please take the time to grieve. In the end, this is still a loss. Sending you so much support, and I'm proud of you. OP. Thank you for your support. With time, I will take time and process. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I had the absolute misfortune of being born into a literal movie. My family is the most dysfunctional family in the history of families, and even the toxicity shown in movies is no match for what I have been born into. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but it is what it is, and I can only live through it. I had thought that things would get better, but I think some people enjoy toxicity, and if they don't find it, they cannot thrive. My dad is one of those people. He likes being a victim, And if he is not on the receiving end of poor treatment that allows him to victimize himself, he goes on and creates situations that disrupt peace. My parents divorced when I was 3 years old. Apparently, as my dad says, he and mom were never compatible, and the marriage was the biggest mistake of their lives. They got married young and had me within a year of their wedding. So initially, it was the honeymoon phase and things were looking fine. It all went south later when my mom realized that she was just not cut out for parenthood and that a child was not just a doll you play dress up with but a big responsibility you have to shoulder for the rest of your life. She freaked out and ran. This is the short version of the story. The long version is that my biological mom was stunning. Every guy would fall madly in love with her and pursue her to the ends of time. Somehow, she got together with dad and they had me. However, mom realized that she was not satisfied. She did not like being a wife or a mother. She hated the fact that she was committed to somebody in any capacity, and she wanted her freedom back. So she did what any mature person would do. She cheated. Kindly note the sarcasm, and not just once. She cheated multiple times. Every single time she got caught, she apologized but started the same thing again. Dad thinks it was actually on purpose, her getting caught. She didn't want to leave herself, so she created a situation that would force Dad to leave her. But Dad was crazy about her, so he kept tolerating everything. It was toxic, and I don't know how he managed to live with her for so long. But ultimately she had had enough. She abandoned us for one of her partners, no one knows which one, and ran off. We have had no news of her since. Dad tried his hardest to look for her, to reach out, but she just vanished like a phantom. I was just 3, and that's why I have no memory of her. To me, she is just a figure from my dad's past. She is in no way my mother. She doesn't deserve that title. Once she left, Dad drowned himself in work. He started a business that became hugely successful, and he has minted a lot of money since then. I think if my bio mom knew what Dad had created in his net worth, she would come running back. But thank God she didn't, because Dad met an amazing woman soon after, and she is the person who is my real mother and my real family. I love her more than I love my dad, and she is the best stepmother, or rather parent, that anyone could ever ask for. Dad met mom, stepmom, but I just call her mom, when I was 6, and they got married when I was 8. She was always nice to me. I remember that I was very apprehensive about her initially, but she took things nice and slow with me, and I warmed up to her very soon, to the extent that I used to be attached at her hip. She took me out for movies, to the arcade, and all this before they got married. When I asked her why she put in so much effort into me as an adult, she said that she wanted to create a family with me rather than just be my dad's wife. She knew what she was getting into, and she wanted to do full justice to that role, and it is safe to say that she did. After all these years, I can confidently say that I couldn't have asked for a better mother. Dad and she got married, and 2 years later, she gave birth to twins, my brothers Arthur and Alex. I was a little worried when they were born because I thought that they were mom's real family and now she wouldn't see me as her own. But I was wrong. Right after they were born and she came back home, she called me and told me that I was her first kid and nothing on earth could change that. I remember hugging her and weeping like an infant. I love my brothers and was very hands-on with them. And even though raising twins was difficult, Mom made sure to make time for me. We still had our weekly movie nights, even though I said no because I knew how taxing it would get for her. But I think more than me, she was worried that I would feel neglected, and she wanted me to realize that she was still my mother, and the twins didn't change anything. We have been a happy family for as long as I can remember. Dad got really busy with his business, so it was mostly the 4 of us. Mom, me, Alex, and Arthur, and our little world together. We thought Dad was busy making money for the family, but we found out recently that Dad was busy doing something entirely different. When I went to college, I got a full scholarship. Dad had a college fund for me, but I didn't need it, and he said that he would give it to me later because I had no use for it at that point, and I agreed with him. I could use that money to maybe buy a house or invest. I was sure I didn't need it for college. I graduated from college and got a job in a different state. I stayed in touch with my family, and I am still close to Arthur and Alex, and I know all about their lives. A month ago, on my way to work, I spotted Dad with someone. A woman. I didn't know her, and I knew for sure that she wasn't family. Alarm bells started ringing in my head. Why was he in my city without informing me? There was something shady going on for sure. I called him up and I saw him receive my call. I tried to talk as normally as possible and asked him what he was up to. He lied to me through his teeth and said that he was busy and that he would talk to me later. I knew what was up. He was having an affair. I decided to follow him and see what he was up to. I followed him and I saw that they checked into a hotel. I booked a room there and followed them. I could faintly make out his room number and went and knocked on his door, pretending to be housekeeping. He fell for it and opened the door. When he saw me, it felt as though someone had put a gun to his head. I pushed my way inside and saw a woman that I hadn't seen before. I just sat on the bed shamelessly and asked him to explain. He tried to be dismissive and deflect the blame and said that I had no business interfering in his personal matters. I told him that if he did not tell me what the hell he was up to, I would call Mom up right now and expose him. I think that scared him, and he admitted that he had been having an affair with this woman for the past 10 years now and that she was the love of his life. I looked at him in disbelief. I couldn't even imagine that he would cheat on someone like Mom. She was the kindest and best woman in the world, and you had to be a different kind of evil to cheat on her. I told him what was the need to cheat on her, and he said that he did not have the heart to divorce her and that she would have nowhere to go if he left her. I was stunned and told him that he was a disgraceful man for cheating on Mom and that I would tell her anyway. He then changed his entire defense and tried to say that after the kids were born, Mom and he degraded into a roommate kind of situation in a few years and that's why they opened their relationship. I told him that open relationships do not work this way at all. They do not entail having a stable partner of 10 years outside the marriage, so he did not need to be an ass and lie to me. I told him that I was not buying these lies and he could do whatever he wanted, but I was going to talk to Mom. He kept on saying that it was an open relationship, and my whole point was that if that were true, I would just call up Mom and confirm. He was adamant that he didn't want me to call her, and that's how his entire bluff of the open marriage fell through. I had a big fight with him and I called him and his mistress all sorts of names. I told him that he had done the same thing to Mom that his first wife, my biological mother, had done to him. He defended himself saying that these were two completely different things and that I would understand when I was older. I told him that I was already 30 and I didn't need to be older to understand what was really happening. He said that the issue with his first wife was completely different because she was a serial cheater and she cheated just for the heck of it. He was apparently actually in love, which is why, according to him, what he was doing was justified, and what my bio mom did wasn't. I told him that if these stupid justifications helped him sleep better at night, he was free to buy into them and gaslight himself, but this nonsense would not work on me. I told him that I was going to talk to Mom whether he liked it or not, and there was nothing he could do to stop me. He physically restrained me from leaving the room and told me that if I exposed him to Mom, he would kick me out of the inheritance and that I would never see a single penny of the wealth he had made. I looked at him in shock and then I started laughing. I told him that I had never known he could stoop to such levels to save his ass and that I didn't want his dirty money anyway. I told him to shove his wealth up his ass, and because of this little stunt of his, I was going to involve Arthur and Alex too. Let the world and his kids know what he was really up to. They are 20 years old now, and that is old enough to know these things and have an opinion on them. He begged me to reconsider. When the ultimatum didn't work, he tried bribing me. He said that he would give me full ownership of his business at the expense of Arthur and Alex. I could not believe how he was stooping to levels I previously thought never even existed. I told him that if he thought I would sabotage my brother's future for wealth, he did not know me at all. I also told him that I was glad Mom had raised me and not him because clearly, with his moral compass, I could literally give competition to the devil. I stormed out of the room, and I couldn't stop crying. It felt as though my world had come crashing down and that I had to shoulder the burden of God knows what, but I knew I had to act fast. He would try and manipulate Mom and tell her a half-baked story that would make the truth look inconsistent. I booked a ticket to their place immediately, took a week's leave from the office, and left that very night. I knew this was not something that could be done over the phone. I had to be present because I knew Mom would break down, and Arthur and Alex are in college. And with this news, Mom couldn't be left alone. I reached the next day, and Mom was overjoyed to see me. She thought I had come to give her a surprise, and I had to stop myself from crying. She had devoted her entire life to this man, and he had betrayed her in the worst possible way. He had been living a double life for 10 years while all this time she was playing wife and mother to his kids and making his house a home. It was a pity, and I have never felt such rage as I felt at that moment. If Dad were there, I knew I would have bashed his skull open. I tried to control my emotions and asked Mom when Dad would be back. She told me that he had actually gone for a week-long trip but had called her at night saying that he was coming back urgently. She was even happier because she thought that now I would get to meet Dad as well. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to break this news to her, but I also knew that as her daughter and as a woman, it was my responsibility to tell her no matter the consequences. I knew that Dad would kick me out of the inheritance, and I knew that Mom would be devastated and heartbroken, but I couldn't just stay quiet. I had to do this for her, and I decided to do it when Dad was home. He came home that night, and he was stunned to see me. He knew that the inevitable was coming, and he just looked so utterly defeated that for a fraction of a second, I felt sorry for him, but it was only for a fraction of a second. I sat them down and told Mom that I had something to tell her, and I let everything out. I told her what I saw. I told her I called him, he lied to me, and then I followed him. I also told her how he pretended that they were in an open relationship and all that nonsense that he had spouted that day. I didn't miss out on a single detail. Obviously, she was shocked and in complete denial. Initially, when Dad saw her reluctance to accept the obvious, he pounced at the chance and started to give some lame-ass excuse, but she cut him off in the middle of his speech. And then they fought, and they fought like two lions at each other's throats. My mother has always been a gentle person. I have rarely seen her yell, be angry, or react violently. She has always been the kind to have control over her emotions, but not that day. That day she was livid. They fought for what I think was an hour or more. It was just plain yelling and mudslinging from both ends, and I didn't say anything but just sat there and listened to them curse each other out. I don't know what outcome they wanted from the fight because there is no coming back from this. Mom is not someone who will ever condone or tolerate cheating. She said that they were over and that she was going to go ahead with the divorce, but she wanted to do it gracefully for the sake of the kids. But my dad, I don't know what kind of man he has become, said that he would not let her leave him and that he was calling Arthur and Alex home so they could talk some sense into her. He got their tickets done that night itself and they arrived 2 days later. Those 2 days were complete hell in the house. I stayed with Mom the entire time and Dad moved to the spare room. They weren't talking to each other, and I wasn't talking to Dad either. Dad went to pick the boys up from the airport and I don't know what he said to them, but when they came back, they were completely brainwashed. Mom tried to be dignified about the entire situation, and both she and I had thought the boys would take her side and kick Dad to the curb, but the exact opposite happened. They took Dad's side and told Mom to suck it up and not break the family. I wanted to slap them right then. It was Alex speaking, but it looked like Arthur was in full agreement. Dad looked smug about the entire situation, and I knew that he had tempted them with money. I got up and asked them if Dad had put their college funds over their heads, and they didn't say anything. I kept asking them if that was the truth, but they just refused to budge. I told them that I would help them get loans and help them repay them as well, and they did not have to be scared and support Dad because they felt they had no other option, but they didn't say anything. They just kept parroting what Dad said the other night. I didn't even have the guts to look at Mom. I knew how heartbroken she must have been, and I know she had raised them better than that. Dad couldn't exploit me because he knew that I wasn't financially dependent on him, but this was where he had an edge over Arthur and Alex. He could just choose to cut them off any time. He is such a lowly scumbag, and I am disgusted that I am biologically related to him. Mom asked the twins if they genuinely thought she should continue in the marriage with a cheater, and they said yes. She said that she was sorry they felt that way, but she wouldn't oblige their wishes. She said that she was going to file for divorce whether anyone liked it or not and whether she had any support or not. I immediately went to her and told her that she had my full support and that she had no reason to worry about anything. Dad sent the boys to their room and asked Mom to reconsider in a condescending tone. He was not even ashamed of his behavior and told her that the entire blame for breaking the family would fall on her shoulders if she proceeded with this. She said that that was a cross she was willing to bear, but she couldn't stand being married to a cheater. That was the end of the discussion between them, and Dad left in a huff. I have come back to work now, and I am in regular touch with Mom. I don't know what's going to happen, and I feel so sad that I am not there to support her during this time, but I have my obligations too. I just hope the boys see sense and choose the right thing instead of being scared about the future if Dad takes away their funds. I know they are in a difficult position, but I just wish they had the guts to stand up to this blatant tyranny and be there for their mom, who needs their support now more than ever. Update 1. Mom has filed for divorce. She tried to do it the nice way, but then she found out that Dad had genuinely kicked me out of the inheritance, and I would get nothing if she proceeded with a divorce. He told her that I was the one who was supporting her, and he tried to blackmail her, saying that if she actually filed, he would kick me out and ensure that I never saw a single penny of the college fund or the family wealth ever again. I think that was his last bargaining chip with her, and he was trying everything in the book to make sure that Mom didn't leave him. He knew that Mom loved me and that she would not agree to anything that would sabotage my life or my future, and he was using this to his advantage. Too bad for him that now I'm a grown woman, and I don't need his scraps. He cannot keep his filthy money over me and manipulate me, and I would not let him do this to Mom either. Mom called me in tears, saying that she was thinking she wouldn't leave him because he had told her that he would not give me anything. It broke my heart to see that even in a situation like this, where she was so miserable, she was thinking about me. I told her not to worry about me and to go ahead with the divorce. I told her that I was doing really well for myself and that I didn't need his dirty money anyway. She broke down and thanked me for standing by her, and I reassured her that I will always stand by her. Now comes the interesting part. Mom got in touch with her lawyer, and the lawyer is very smart and shrewd, and he has taken Dad to task. Mom had not given me the details of the divorce, but Dad called me up yesterday and started yelling at me, saying that I was the one who was supporting Mom and ruining him and that I was no daughter of his if I let this continue. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I called up Mom, and surprisingly, she seemed in a very good mood. She had moved out earlier and was living with a friend, and that is when she gave me the spicy details, and I couldn't stop laughing when I heard the story. Karma had come to bite my father in the ass, and now he was too deep in his own mess to do anything about it. I think that is what arrogance does to a person. It makes him feel that he is invincible and clouds his memory and keeps him away from reality. Too bad he came crashing down to the ground. Years and years ago, when Mom and Dad were married, Mom had sold her jewelry and family heirlooms to fund Dad's business. None of us knew this. Mom said that she never felt the need to tell us or involve us in these financial matters, and that she had given that money to Dad because she trusted him and wanted him to create a name for himself. Never in a million years had she anticipated that he would be the one to turn around and stab her in the back. When Mom disclosed this to her lawyer, he took Dad to task. Mom has asked for a 50% stake in Dad's business because of the investment she made into it all those years ago. The issue is that the business cannot run in a partnership. I can't disclose much about his work because I don't want this going public, and now Mom's lawyer says that Dad will either have to buy out her half or just run the business in partnership, which is not practically possible. So essentially, Dad is completely screwed, and now I think this is why he seemed so scared when I had caught him and told him that I would be telling Mom. I think he knew that if this went public, Mom would leave him, and since she had invested so much, he would have to give her half the business. Now he wants to make amends, but Mom is not in the mood, and rightly so. There is no other compromise that she is open to, and it seems that the judge is leaning heavily in her favor. Dad's little affair with the love of his life has ended up being very costly for him. It has cost him his family and now his entire career, and I couldn't be happier. Men like him who exploit their wives and take them for granted deserve this and much worse. Update 2. The divorce has been finalized. Mom is a single woman, and she has possession of half of Dad's assets. Dad is mad about it, and he hasn't stopped ranting about it to anyone who has ears. Everyone is sick of his nonsense, though, and he is losing people who would even be willing to speak to him by the minute. And the best part of it all is, the love of his life, his mistress of the last 10+ years, has left him. The minute she found out that he had no money left was the minute she left him. So Dad essentially lost his family, his money, and his respect for a woman who left him the minute his net worth halved and the entire charm of being involved with a rich and married man wore off. He is the biggest loser at the end of it all, and I am so happy about it. Once the divorce was finalized, I sent him a text that he was dead to me from that day on, and that he had no reason to contact me ever again. I have blocked him since then, and I honestly don't want anything to do with him anymore. He can rot in hell with his filthy morals for all I care. And now for the most interesting part of it all. Mom has willed the entire share of her property and assets to me because she knew that Dad wasn't going to give me anything and had basically bought Arthur and Alex by keeping their funds and his money over their heads. She didn't want me to lose out, which is why she has publicly declared that she is going to give everything to me. When Arthur and Alex got to know about this, they called me up and demanded that I split my share with them because we are family and family is supposed to look out for each other. I told them that Mom was their family too, but they did not have these strong opinions when she was sobbing and asking them for support. They had nothing to say to that but were insistent that I split my share with them. I told them that they were behaving like entitled brats, and while I know Dad had them under his thumb, they still had to at least be decent human beings. And that is when Arthur said something I will never forget. He said that since I was not Mom's real daughter, I had no right to that money anyway, and that only they were Mom's real family. I asked Alex if he felt the same way as his brother, and he said yes. It hurt like hell. I didn't expect such a low blow from them. I know they said it out of anger and that they didn't mean it, but I don't care. It was hurtful and mean, and I don't think I can forgive them for that. I told them that if they were Mom's real family, why was I the only one standing with her when she needed support? Why didn't they speak up then? I said that if I was not their real family, they had no business talking to me and begging me for scraps. I cut the call and blocked them. I know they are kids, but at 20 years old, you need to have some kind of sensitivity to such issues, and I know that I'm going to forgive them ultimately, but as of now, I just can't talk to them. They have hurt me a lot, and maybe I will get over it in time, and we will normalize things, but now I just want space. And I need the mental peace and stability to be able to look after my mother and be there for her. She has been very strong throughout this ordeal, and it is my turn to support her and give her love and care, just like she has been doing for me ever since I was a kid. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My stepmother always acted sweet in front of others, but behind closed doors, she quietly pushed me aside and favored her own children. My dad would say I'm his biggest disappointment at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Not due to legal issues, not because I'm jobless, not because I've done something wrong, but because I lived my life my way instead of following his plan. My father, James, likes things his way. Control, looks, and family devotion have always been his priorities, as long as it benefits him. When my parents divorced, I was 10. Externally, the divorce was not ugly, but my dad moved swiftly. He remarried Stephanie, a mother of Hunter and Olivia, within a year. After that, everything changed. I tried hard at first. As a child, I wanted my dad to be happy. Stephanie was fake, sweetly lovely, overly exuberant in public, often claiming to be trying to blend the family. She hugged me too firmly and said, "I just know we're going to be best friends." However, behind closed doors, she clearly prioritized her kids. After always being involved in my life, my dad had new priorities. He became their father from mine. It started with tiny things, like missing my soccer games but never Hunter's, not picking me up from school yet always being on time for Olivia's dance recital. It intensified. By 14, I was expected to babysit, help with duties they never had to do, and appear like a good big sister while they got away with everything. If I protested, my dad would sigh like I was exhausting and say, "They need more attention. You're old. Be mature." Stephanie took a more direct approach. She called me selfish. My dad depleted my mom's college savings account. The final straw. Mom battled hard in court to get that money back. However, the harm was done. I was mad. Last year of high school, I scarcely spoke to him. I returned only for holidays after leaving for college, which I funded for myself. My relationship with him never restored. After years, I still received family function invitations, but they always felt like a chore. I could tell my dad and Stephanie saw me as the problematic child who refused to play happy family. Hunter and Olivia were golden children. It was my dad's birthday party. Stephanie was planning an extravagant, invite everyone we ever met party for him. Going wasn't my plan. My aunt, one of my few allies, persuaded me. Just stop by for a while, she added. Maybe things changed. No, they hadn't. I sensed it when I entered that familiar, unwanted strain. Long-lost friends were there. I got polite nods instead of hearty greetings. Everyone talked around me, but no one included me. I spotted my dad laughing with old acquaintances across the room. When he saw me, his smile wavered for a moment, like he was surprised I showed up. I regretted coming when I saw a small table at the entryway. Name tags existed. Stephanie said this helped people mingle at earlier occasions. It was hers. Most tags were typical: Uncle Mark, Cousin Rachel, Neighbor Tom. I spotted mine. I froze. It wasn't only my name on my tag. It mentioned something else, something stomach-turning. Staring at it, I lifted it up. From across the room, I heard a familiar laugh. Stephanie's. She watched me. She held a wine glass with a grin. My chest heated as I grasped the name tag. The outcome was not what she expected. I held the name tag for a second. My brain took longer to digest what I saw. My name, but someone wrote below in smaller letters. The letdown. It seemed like a joke at first, an offensive joke. Possibly a cousin being silly, maybe a mishap. Stephanie laughed, though. She was across the room at the bar. When I looked up, she sipped wine carelessly, met my eyes, and a slow, contented grin grew across her face. I felt my pulse in my ears. Several folks observed me standing there, a few glances at me. I felt it even if no one spoke. This is expected. Don't cause a scene. That was almost audible. The name tag was returned to the table. After a deep breath, I streamlined it to match the others. I nearly laughed. Of course. Naturally, she did this. It was typical Stephanie. Not insulting something not obvious enough to call her out on. Something subtle enough to make me look like the problem if I reacted. I should have known something like this was coming when I entered. A hand stroked my shoulder, and I looked to my aunt, the only family member who had ever understood me. Her lips were tightly lined and brows pulled together. She noticed the name tag. She glanced at Stephanie. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I smiled tightly. "Yeah," I replied. "I'm fine." But I wasn't. I was tired. I was exhausted beyond words because it was old. This wasn't her worst act. This continued a long tradition of ensuring my place. I should have left then. I should have turned around and fled. Some part of me said, no. This time, no. Instead, I took a big breath, straightened my shoulders, and did something I knew would surprise them. I grinned a natural smile, like nothing had happened. Taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, I softly clinked it with my nail and looked toward the room, because I would give Stephanie a show if she wanted one. I raised my drink slightly, felt the atmosphere move as a few folks looked my way. I hadn't reacted yet. The gentle clink of my nail against the glass was enough to grab attention. Stephanie hesitated for a moment before taking another leisurely drink of wine, her eyes narrowing as if attempting to figure out what I was doing. I considered making a toast, but I gave a tiny shake of my head and turned away to continue the celebration. I wouldn't let her react, not yet. Everything was as expected at the celebration. Crowded, too polished, expensive catering, decorated with care. Stephanie always went all out since everything in her life was a performance. It didn't only celebrate Dad's birthday. It was for show, about spreading the word about her ideal life. She and my father adored each other. How successful their kids were, their offspring, not me. Hunter and Olivia were already in the middle of the room, surrounded by a few relatives nodding as Olivia talked about her wedding. And of course Dad's paying for everything. She smiled as she twisted the huge diamond on her finger. We wanted something tasteful. You know, a real elegant wedding. Not one of those tacky Pinterest disasters. I chuckled. Olivia was always like this, polished, rehearsed. She was self-absorbed enough to make sure everything swirled around her without being obvious. Hunter leaned against the bar, nodding as my dad's old acquaintances congratulated him on his new position, which I knew he hadn't earned. Hunter had never worked. He was given every chance. My father quietly corrected every error. I considered walking over to join the conversation, to watch them wiggle. Before I could, my father spoke. "Ah," he said. He was approaching. When I turned, he held a drink, his look neutral. "I didn't think you were going to come." I smiled, but not really. "Wouldn't miss it." He nodded and looked around before staring at me. "You've been keeping busy, I hear." It existed. He politely avoided asking about my life. He always did. I nodded. "Yeah, work's been good. I bought a house last year." He raised his brow. "A house?" "Yep." Sipping his drink, he asked nothing else. One thing about my dad: whenever I did anything that prevented him from seeing me as a failure, he loathed me. Every time I did something without his money or aid, it eroded his narrative about myself. I was lost, selfish, immature. He disliked that. He liked the me he could shake his head at, the version he could pitifully describe when asked about me. He was obviously thinking of something to say, a sly dig. Stephanie's voice severed the talk like a knife before he could. "Well," she remarked, standing up behind him, "at least she finally did something responsible." Just then, my chest started heating up again. I went to her and saw her beaming like she was so thrilled to see me. I recognized the look. I'd seen it 100 times. Stephanie would insult you in person, and if you got offended, you were the problem. It was a joke, you were oversensitive. I should have left, should have let go, but I didn't, because everything about this night, about everything, was off. Possibly the name tag. Maybe it was because my dad seldom spoke to me before ignoring me. Maybe it was the fact that the room was full of individuals who were never my relatives. Whatever. I was done. I tilted my head at Stephanie. I said, "You know, I was going to let it go quietly, but I have to ask whose idea was the name tag?" I saw a little spark on her face. "Oh, come on," she laughed. "You always take things so personally." It was funny. I nodded. "Right. Hilarious." Sipping wine, she shrugged. "You know, if you spent less time being angry all the time, maybe you'd be—" I cut her off with a finger. "Actually," I answered calmly, "I think you're right." She narrowed her eyes. "About what?" "About making a joke." I turned, raising my glass. "Because now that I think about it, I have a joke too." She blinked in surprise. My father shifted awkwardly beside her. My smile was slow and comfortable. "I'd like to make a toast." Suddenly, the room quieted. Not all at once. Not now. As inquisitive individuals looked at me, talk slowed because people adore toasts, especially surprise ones. I felt my father tighten beside me. Stephanie giggled and shifted her weight to ignore me. "Oh, come on, you don't have to." I smiled and extended my hand. "No, really. I insist." With more people looking at me and whispering curiously, the room altered. Some attendees grabbed their drinks for a light-hearted toast. What was coming was unknown. Stephanie's smile tightened, but she kept her cool, believing I was the same person she'd always known. The individual who took every insult, let everything go, and never fought back. My dad got more agitated. He knew me better than she. He tightened his glass grip and looked at me for the first time all evening. Not through me, around me, or at me. I raised my glass after letting the silence build, building anticipation. "To my father," I said, almost chatty. "And to Stephanie, of course, because without them, I don't think I would have learned one of the most valuable lessons of my life." I sipped champagne slowly. Stephanie breathed a little laugh. "Oh boy, here we go." A few laughed. They assumed they were joking. They believed I was going to make fun of myself or smooth things over like usual. I grinned. "No, really. I mean it. Because I think we often learn the most from the people who challenge us. Don't you?" I looked at my dad. "Dad, you always told me that family is supposed to build each other up, that we should support one another, celebrate each other's successes." My father's throat bobbed as he swallowed, strengthening his drink grasp. He didn't like the direction. And I used to believe that. I really did. But then somewhere along the way, I realized something. The room was nearly silent. Stephanie's fingers were so tight around her wine glass stem that I thought it would break. I gently placed my glass on the table next to me. I realized that for some people, support only exists when you fit into the version of yourself they want you to be. That as long as you play the role they've written for you, whether it's the golden child or the black sheep, they'll keep you right where they need you. And if you step outside that role, I shook my head and exhaled hard. Well, that's when they show you how they really feel. A few unpleasant crowd shifts were heard, looking at each other. Olivia awaited my father's response before determining how to feel. Hunter smiled like this was his entertainment. Stephanie smiled, but her knuckles were white. I used to think that if I just proved myself, if I worked hard, if I was successful, if I played by the rules, you'd see me differently. I murmured, softening but not slowing. But I get it now. It was never about me. It was never about what I did or didn't do. Stephanie spoke, likely to interrupt me, but I stopped her. I returned to my dad. Because I was never intended to succeed, right? His expression briefly changed. I exhaled and rolled my shoulders after letting that hang. But I did. I built something for myself. I made a life that has nothing to do with his family. And let me tell you, it's been the most peaceful, fulfilling thing I've ever done. I could sense people's doubts and interest, since they didn't understand what I was saying. I was tired of letting them believe Stephanie and my father's years-long construction of me. Stephanie forced another laugh to recover control. Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. It's just a name tag. I looked at her. You're right, I answered effortlessly. It is, but it's also a pattern. A lifetime of moments just like this. Little digs, little jokes, little ways of reminding me that no matter what I do, in your eyes, I'll always be the disappointment. Dad cleared his throat and stepped forward. That's enough. I met his gaze directly. Oh, I agree. It is enough. Before anyone could grasp what was occurring, I took up my glass again. It was slightly elevated to let my next remark settle over the room. To the last time you'll ever see me. A deafening hush. My father was tense. Stephanie lowered her jaw before closing it. Somebody in the back said, "Wait, what?" I put my drink down, turned around, and headed for the door without saying a word. I felt their gaze, can feel panic setting in because this was different. One last peek back before entering. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was leaving a fight, walking toward something, toward freedom, toward peace. I was establishing a life away from my family's problems. Walking outside, I inhaled the crisp night air. It ended years earlier. I should have cut ties. No more pretense, no more attempting to please folks who never cared about me unless I fit their ideal. My shoulders felt lighter with each mile as I drove home that night in silence. However, as I sat in my peaceful living room that evening, I wondered whether I had gone too far. Was my decision right? Was I too harsh? The next several days were filled with texts and calls. I remained silent. I avoided social media because I knew it was full of consequences. I skipped my dad's birthday party. I publicly shamed him and Stephanie, his wife, my stepmother. I always thought the woman was pushing me aside for her ideal world. The family group chat was full of messages, but I kept quiet, unsure if I could handle the encounter. Finally, my aunt, the only person who understood me, texted me to check if I was okay. Not knowing what to say, I was okay. I felt better in years, but also uncertain. Told her I needed time, not pressing. Dad called me the next morning. "Where are you?" he questioned in his usual tone, which usually made me feel like I had disappointed him. "I'm home," I said. "I'm not coming back." I only needed his silence. "You can't just leave like this," he continued after a moment. "This family, we have to stick together." There was no hesitation. Not if sticking together means pretending to be someone I'm not. Not anymore. It was our last conversation. I avoided all family events, weddings, birthday celebrations, and whatever else they planned for weeks. The rest of my family either agreed with my dad and Stephanie's perception of me or pretended nothing had happened. The grapevine told me my dad was hurt. Stephanie was outraged. My brother and sister disapproved of my scene. None of it disturbed me. I knew my decision was right for me. I continued living, still strong. Although cutting them off was difficult, I experienced a sense of tranquility I hadn't felt in years. No family member has talked to me since then. So I ask, am I an a-hole for leaving like that? For toasting and totally chopping them off? Did I overreach? Am I justified in finally sticking up for myself? I'll never please my dad. I won't be his daughter. However, I may have realized that I no longer need to be. Reddit, inform me. Was my behavior inappropriate? Was this overdue? Now on to the next story. Story 7. I gave up my career to raise my husband's child for 15 years, only for them to publicly thank his mistress for making him happy for 8 months. I 40F met my husband, James, 42M, when Ellie, his daughter, was 7 years old. Her mother died when she was 5, and James was straining to juggle his work as a construction supervisor with rearing a small child. We initially met at a mutual friend's housewarming celebration, and he appeared fatigued but dedicated to his daughter. Ellie clung to his thigh throughout the evening, shy in front of the multitude of grown-ups. I offered her some of the dessert I'd brought, and she gradually opened up. After our initial meeting, James requested my phone number. Our first date was at a family-friendly restaurant where Ellie was welcome to join us. I recall thinking it was strange to have a child on a first date, but now I see James was testing how I would connect with his daughter. When I quickly connected with Ellie, he was relieved. She was quiet but intellectual, enjoyed drawing, and clearly needed a mother figure in her life. Over the next few months, we had more family dates than romantic ones. James invited me to Ellie's school plays, soccer events, and even parent-teacher conferences. I did not mind. I had always wanted children, and Ellie's stern little face would light up when she saw me in the crowd. 6 months after we began dating, James asked me to move in with them. Their abode was modest but comfortable. I quit my apartment and my work as a middle school English teacher to care for Ellie. The school where I taught was an hour away from James' place, and it would have been impossible to commute with a little child. Instead, I found a part-time job that paid less but provided me the freedom to be present for Ellie. James worked long hours as a construction supervisor, frequently departing before dawn and returning after Ellie went to bed. I was the one who packed Ellie's lunches with small notes inside, assisted with multiplication tables and spelling tests, attended parent-teacher conferences, and nursed her through stomach viruses and ear infections. I taught her how to braid her hair and how to stand up to the girls who bullied her at school. When Ellie was 8, she began calling me Mom, rather than my first name. The first time it happened, I froze, unsure of James' reaction, but he only grinned and later told me that he was relieved Ellie had found someone to fill the position. Ellie was 9 years old when James and I got married. We held a little ceremony in our backyard for just our family and close friends. Ellie was our flower girl and announced to everyone at the wedding that she was getting a real mom now. My parents, who were initially suspicious of me marrying a man with a child, eventually warmed up to James after seeing how happy the 3 of us were together. For 15 years, I devoted myself to our family. I never attempted to replace her original mother. We went to her cemetery every year on her birthday, and I encouraged Ellie to keep a journal of things she'd like to tell her mother if she were still here. On Ellie's 18th birthday, I collected these journal entries into a bound book as a gift, along with images of her growing up that I felt her mother would like seeing. When Ellie was applying to colleges, I took her to campus visits, edited her application essays, and sat up late researching scholarship prospects. James went on several trips when his job schedule allowed, but it was my responsibility to assist her prepare for her future on a daily basis. I did not mind. I was proud of the young woman she was becoming and felt satisfied in my role as her mother. James treated us all to dinner to celebrate Ellie's college acceptance letters. He raised a drink to Ellie's bright future and praised me for being the best mother she could have hoped for. That night, I sobbed happy tears, knowing that despite the hardships, we had successfully built a loving family. When Ellie decided to take a gap year after her second year of college to discover herself, James was sad, but I supported her decision. I assisted her in finding a part-time work at a nearby store and encouraged her to use her leisure time to pursue interests she had not had time for in school. She resumed painting, something she had enjoyed as a child but abandoned in high school when academics became increasingly difficult. Ellie celebrated her 22nd birthday last month. We prepared a large supper at an expensive Italian restaurant downtown that Ellie had always wanted to visit. I made appointments weeks in advance to secure the private dining room with the greatest view of the city. James insisted on inviting some of his coworkers, which seemed unusual given that this was a family gathering, but I didn't question it. I assumed he was proud and wanted to show off our talented daughter. I spent weeks arranging the event, including ordering a special cake with an edible image of Ellie's favorite childhood photo and purchasing a silver bracelet engraved with her birth date and a short message. To my daughter, with love always. I wrapped it in her favorite color paper and enclosed a card with a lengthy note about how proud I was of the woman she had become. The day of the dinner, I picked up the cake, had my hair done, and donned the blue dress Ellie had helped me choose during our last shopping trip together. I arrived at the restaurant early to ensure that everything was perfect. The table decorations, the reserved seating arrangement, and the special dessert menu I had planned with the chef. James and Ellie came together after he picked her up from her friend's place where she was getting dressed. Ellie hugged me briefly, but she appeared distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. James was similarly remote, checking the door every few minutes as guests arrived. About 20 people went, including my sister and her husband, several of Ellie's high school and college pals, and some of James' coworkers whom I had never met before. Laura, 35F, in particular, arrived late and made a strong impression. She was dressed in a form-fitting crimson dress and quickly swept the room until she spotted James. She seemed at ease around him from the moment she arrived, laughing loudly at all of his jokes and stroking his arm several times during conversation. I noted this but disregarded it as friendly office behavior, though I did question why I had never heard of her before if they were close colleagues. During supper, I sat at one end of the long table with my sister, while James sat at the other end beside Laura and across from Ellie. This seating arrangement had not been in my plans. I anticipated our family to sit together, but James had changed them as they arrived, claiming it would allow for greater communication throughout the meal. I attempted to engage with the guests around me, but my attention was drawn to the conversation between James, Laura, and Ellie. They were swapping inside jokes and giggling in a way that made me feel strangely alienated from my own daughter's birthday party. After the main meal, the waitress brought out the bespoke cake that I had requested. I stood up to say a few words about Ellie, recalling our first meeting and expressing my admiration for the kind, clever young woman she had grown into. James checked his watch during my brief speech, and Ellie smiled nicely but appeared uneasy. After I sat down, Ellie stood up to make her own speech. She thanked her friends for coming and then her father for always supporting her financially and allowing her to pursue her aspirations. I waited for her to recognize my position in her life. She glanced directly at Laura and stated, "I'd like to thank Laura for making my father happy over the last 8 months. It's so lovely to see him grin again." The table became utterly silent. Laura gazed down at her plate with a faint, happy smile as James' face became scarlet. I looked about, perplexed, then returned to Ellie, who continued, "I know it's been hard keeping your relationship secret, but I'm glad we don't have to pretend anymore. Laura has been like a friend to me, and I'm happy Dad has found someone who really understands him." Several visitors moved uneasily in their chairs. My sister reached under the table and grasped my hand firmly. I stared at James, who eventually looked at me but couldn't keep my eyes. Laura reached over and squeezed his hand publicly before raising her wine glass to Ellie. "Thanks." In that moment, I realized that my husband had been having an affair with this lady for 8 months, and my stepdaughter, the girl I had nurtured and loved for 15 years, had been aware of it the whole time. Not only had she maintained their secret, but she had picked this public occasion, a celebration I had meticulously arranged, to subject me to humiliation. Without saying anything, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and left the restaurant. I could hear whispers behind me and someone screaming my name, but I didn't turn around. Outside, I noticed I was shaking. I groped for my car keys as footsteps approached from behind me. James screamed out my name as he jogged across the parking lot. When he caught up with me, he grabbed my arm and prevented me from getting into my car. "Let me explain. This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "How long?" I inquired, drawing my arm away from him. "It doesn't matter," he replied, running his hand through his hair. "Things between us haven't been right for years. You must have felt it too." 8 months, according to our daughter," I said. "Our daughter, who you turned against me." James attempted to explain that his connection with Laura just happened after they worked together on a project. He claimed they hadn't intended to fall in love, but he had been sad for years and didn't know what to tell me. He claimed Laura understood him in ways I never did and that Ellie accepted their relationship because she saw how happy Laura made him. "I was going to tell you after Ellie's birthday," stated the gentleman. "I never wanted you to find out like this." I wondered if the previous 15 years had meant anything to him. He turned his head away. "You've been a good stepmother to Ellie, and I'll always be grateful for that, but Laura and we connect on a different level. She's more aligned with my goals for the future." I got into my car and drove to my sister's house that night, leaving the gift for Ellie in the trunk. My sister arrived home an hour later, bringing my coat that I had left at the restaurant and saying that most of the people had left immediately after my departure, leaving an uneasy celebration that swiftly dissipated. The following day, I returned home while James was at work. I packed my essentials: clothes, personal documents, family photos, and a few sentimental items I couldn't bear to part with. I realized some of Laura's belongings were already in our bedroom. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note indicating that I would be filing for divorce. I did not mention Ellie in the note. I couldn't find words to describe the magnitude of that betrayal. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed with my sister while looking for a new apartment and met with a divorce attorney. I took a leave of absence from my part-time job, unable to concentrate on lesson preparations and student requirements while my personal life was in disarray. My sister assisted me in my search for affordable flats, and I eventually found a 1-bedroom place in a different section of town, away from the area where I might run across James or Ellie. Throughout those weeks, James called and texted incessantly, alternately apologizing for how I found out and blaming me for being emotionally distant during our marriage. He felt I concentrated too much on Ellie and not enough on him, that I'd ceased being the lady he married, that I did not encourage his professional objectives. With each message, his tone became more accusing, as if his affair was my responsibility. I didn't react to the majority of his communications, instead corresponding with my lawyer about practical things about our shared finances in the house. After a particularly unpleasant voicemail in which he described me as frigid and cruel, I eventually blocked his number. Ellie also called multiple times, leaving voicemails in which she apologized but stated that she was only trying to encourage her father's pleasure. In one message, she explained that Laura had first confided in her about her attraction to James, making Ellie feel special and included in an adult secret. Later messages became defensive, with Ellie claiming that she didn't understand why I was overreacting and that these things happen in families all the time. I didn't answer any of her texts because I couldn't reconcile the daughter I raised with the young woman who had so openly deceived me. 3 weeks after moving out, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Ellie texting on a friend's phone. "I need to talk to you urgently, please. It's important." Against my better judgment and my sister's advice, I agreed to meet her in a little diner near my new apartment the next day. When I got to the diner, I scarcely recognized her. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled. She looked like she hadn't slept for days. Her clothing was crumpled. Her hair was dirty and hurriedly pulled back, and black circles surrounded her eyes. She was nervously shredding a paper napkin and burst into tears when she saw me. I sat across from her, keeping my emotional distance despite her obvious distress. When the waitress arrived, I ordered a coffee I didn't want just to give Ellie time to settle herself. When the waitress left, Ellie dried her eyes with the shredded napkin and started speaking quickly between sobs. Ellie stated that Laura had moved into our house a few days after I departed. She had reclaimed the master bedroom, replaced family portraits with her own artwork, and began remodeling the living room without consulting James or Ellie. Laura announced she was pregnant with James' kid 2 weeks later during a dinner at which Ellie was already feeling uneasy in what had previously been her family home. According to Ellie, James appeared stunned by the news but quickly recovered, toasting to their new beginning. After Laura went to bed that night, James summoned Ellie to his home office. He informed her that they intended to turn her bedroom into a nursery and that she needed to move out. He advised she take the modest guest room in the basement if she wished to remain. When Ellie objected, pointing out that the basement room lacked sufficient windows and that she had lived in her room since childhood, James reminded her she was now an adult who needed to support their new family. He reminded her that she had been supportive of his relationship with Laura from the start and questioned why she was now being tough. He claimed I was being selfish. Ellie informed me that he believed Laura required less stress during her pregnancy and that her attitude was creating a toxic environment. Ellie had relocated her necessary possessions to a friend's apartment the next day, believing it to be temporary until she could find her own place. However, her part-time retail job did not give enough income to pay for an apartment in our pricey city, and she had missed far too many shifts during the crisis. When she got back to work, her manager informed her that she had been replaced. She now had no income, no permanent place to live, and her friend's patience had worn thin after a week of couch surfing. I tried applying for other jobs, Ellie told me, but I keep breaking down during interviews. I can't focus. I can't sleep. I don't know what to do. I sat there stunned, listening to her narrative, and watched tears trickle down the face of the girl I had raised, the young woman who now appeared hopelessly lost. After she finished speaking, I inquired, "Did you know about their affair the entire time?" Ellie nodded slowly before looking down at the table. "Laura told me first," she confessed. "She came to the store where I worked about 8 months ago. She bought me lunch and told me she and Dad had feelings for each other. She said she wanted my blessing before things got serious." Ellie went on to tell how Laura had formed a connection with her, taking her shopping and buying her extravagant gifts that James could never afford on his own wage. Laura had told Ellie that they will soon be a real family and that I was preventing her father from experiencing true happiness. According to Laura, James had chosen me because he needed help parenting Ellie, but now that Ellie was older, he deserved a chance at true love. She made it sound romantic, Ellie commented quietly, like Dad had sacrificed his happiness for years and finally deserved something for himself. Ellie acknowledged that she had helped them plan their encounters, including lying to me about James' location when he was actually with Laura. She had removed suspicious text messages from James' phone when he left it unattended, and she had once diverted my attention with a staged issue regarding a college assignment so James could meet Laura for a weekend getaway. Laura said, "You would understand eventually," Ellie added. She said, "Most modern families go through transitions like this, and we would all be friends someday." I took a long breath and reminded Ellie of everything I'd given up for her, including my full-time teaching job, independence, and 15 years of my own life. I pointed out that I had attended every school function, but James had missed the majority of them due to work. I had taught her to drive, spending hours in parking lots and on quiet streets, while James said he lacked the patience. Ellie sobbed harder with each example, nodding to acknowledge the shared memories. "And how did you repay that devotion?" I asked. "You lied to my face for 8 months. You helped your father deceive me. You sat in our home, eating meals I cooked, accepting gifts I bought, all while knowing that the two people I loved most in the world were betraying me." I told Ellie that her betrayal hurt more than James since I never expected her to choose me over her biological father. I had always taught her that blood links were vital and sacred, but I raised her as if she were my own daughter, with all of my maternal love, and she had viewed me as disposable, a placeholder to be dumped when no longer required. Then I stood up, paid for my untouched coffee, and told Ellie that she had made her decision 8 months earlier to help her father cheat. "I will not be helping you now. But where am I supposed to go?" Ellie inquired, her voice increasing with panic. "I have nowhere to live, no job. Dad won't take my calls anymore, and Laura has changed the locks on the house. I tried to get my remaining things yesterday, and they wouldn't let me in." "That's not my problem," I said. "You're an adult, Ellie. Figure it out." Ellie shouted out to me as I walked out of the diner, saying that she had made a mistake and that James had twisted her. She claimed Laura had promised they would all live happily together, but she had no idea he would forsake her once she was no longer helpful to their narrative. "Please," she sobbed as I approached the door. You're the only mother I've ever really known. I paused, resting my hand on the door handle. I recognized not the young woman who had betrayed me, but the 7-year-old girl who had previously clung to my knee during thunderstorms. Then I remembered her expression when she thanked Laura at the birthday dinner, and I pushed the door open without looking back. That night, I blocked Ellie's phone number and all of her social media accounts. I also banned the phone numbers of mutual acquaintances who could attempt to contact me on her behalf. I changed my email address and informed my office that I would not be accepting personal visitors. 2 days later, my sister informed me that Ellie had written on social media about being homeless and betrayed by her family. The post made vague references to mistakes and regrets while portraying her as the victim of circumstances beyond her control. Several relatives have subsequently contacted me, claiming that I am being overly harsh and that Ellie is still young and made a mistake. They say I've raised her for 15 years and shouldn't forsake her now, no matter what she has done. Part of me feels bad about Ellie's circumstances. She is young, and her father has plainly exploited her with the help of his lover. I know how convincing James can be when he wants something and how easy he can make others feel guilty when they disagree with him. I saw this pattern throughout our marriage but always made excuses for him. But another part of me can't forgive her active role in wrecking my marriage and our family. She did more than simply keep their affair a secret. She also aided it by interfering and fabricating alibis. She watched as I continued to love and care for her despite knowing I was being duped, and then she publicly insulted me on her birthday in front of friends and family, seemingly without remorse until the scenario backfired on her. My sister thinks I should assist Ellie locate a place to stay or lend her money for a security deposit. She claims that despite everything, I am the closest thing Ellie has to a mother, but I doubt I can encounter her again without remembering her betrayal. So, am I the asshole for refusing to assist my stepdaughter after she helped my husband cheat on me and is now dealing with the consequences of her actions? Edit. Thank you for your responses. To clarify several points that people have inquired about, yes, I legally adopted Ellie when she was 11, so I am her adoptive mother, not simply stepmother. Ellie is now taking a gap year from college. She has college loans and a little scholarship, but she intended to work to save for next year's expenditures. James and I do not have biological children together. I was unable to have children because of medical difficulties uncovered after our marriage. The house is in both of our names, but I left because I couldn't take being there with the memories. My lawyer is in charge of dividing assets. Many people inquired about Ellie's grandparents. James' parents died many years ago, and his former in-laws, Ellie's maternal grandparents, relocated to another country after their daughter died and had little touch with the family. Update 1. It's been a week since I last posted. My lawyer informed me that James wanted to keep the house because Laura is pregnant, and he offered me a lower settlement than I was entitled to. I refused his offer. Meanwhile, a mutual acquaintance informed me that Ellie is now staying with one of James' relatives who contacted her after reading her social media posts. Update 2. 2 weeks after my original post, I received a handwritten letter from Ellie yesterday. She asked for neither money nor a place to stay. Instead, she published a thorough narrative of how Laura had slowly eased her way into their lives, bringing Ellie things and behaving like a friend, while continually pointing out my apparent failings as a wife and mother. Ellie said that she now understands Laura targeted her as a ploy to get to James, and she truly regrets betraying me. She concluded the letter by stating that she does not expect forgiveness but wanted me to know that she recognizes the gravity of her mistake. I have not responded to the letter yet. I'm still absorbing things and working on finalizing my divorce. My lawyer thinks James is now making a more acceptable deal because I have not backed down. Update 3. It's been a month since my initial post. The divorce case is moving along. James finally consented to a fair asset distribution after my lawyer threatened to summon Laura for a deposition. I finally contacted Ellie last week after getting her second letter. We met for lunch. Ellie apologized again and admitted that she couldn't erase the damage she had done. She found a tiny apartment with a roommate and will start a new job next week. She did not ask for financial assistance again. I informed Ellie that I needed more time before I could contemplate restoring our relationship. Our trust has been entirely shattered, and I'm not sure it can be mended. I did, however, provide her with the contact information for a therapist who could assist her in processing what had occurred. Several people have asked me if I regret leaving the restaurant that night without confronting James and Laura openly. I do not. Maintaining my dignity was more essential than causing a scene. The fact that their new happy family fell apart so swiftly demonstrates that relationships formed on lies are rarely sustainable. Thank you to everyone who offered their opinions and advice. I am still recuperating, but I am also moving on with my life. Now on to the next story. Story 8. After discovering my stepmom's secret Reddit account, I learned she hates me and my siblings, and it's completely shattered our family. July 17, 2024. I'm really pissed off. In one event, I even cried reading the things she said, and I don't know what to do. I don't need any advice. I just want to vent. My father has been married to my stepmother for 5 years. He has been divorced from my mother since my younger brother was 2 years old. There is no beef between them, and they have great co-parenting. I have a 17-year-old sister, a 16-year-old brother, and I'm 25. Then, my father has a 3-year-old son with my stepmother. I found her Reddit account in a pretty random way. Since I'm only home on the weekends, I let her use my computer. She forgot to close her email. She doesn't post too much, but she comments too much. I was honestly going to close the email, but it caught my attention that all the replies were from a step-parent subreddit. So, curiosity won me over. I know it's not a good thing to do, and curiosity killed the cat. The first thing I saw was her last post, in which she detailed things about my life in a random Reddit sub, criticizing my decisions and even lying to get people to support her. She has posts on that site talking about how happy she feels when my siblings are not at home. My sister adores her, but she has comments talking about how she can't wait for them to turn 18 and leave the house because she just wants to share the house with her family. My father and her toddler. It seems that she doesn't see us as her family. She has a lot of comments answering other people that it's totally okay to not love your stepchildren because they're not family and it's okay not to consider them one. She has comments talking about how much it bothers her when my dad and brother have sleepovers. They just watch a series in the playroom and then go to sleep as she is tired of hearing the laughter of a teenager and can't wait until we all leave the house so my father can be with his real family. But what she hates the most is having to learn sign language for my little sister. It had always seemed strange to me that SM still struggles with sign language, but now I know that she never really put in the effort to learn. My sister always said that for many people, sign language is very difficult, so I never said anything, but now I know that she always found it stupid to learn how to communicate with my sister, when my sister always tried to help her. I was too surprised by the hatred she has when my father spends time with me and my sister. Her jealousy towards us is so obvious that it disgusts me that there were so many people who told her how they feel the same way about their stepdaughters, to the point of sexualizing things. My siblings are not problem children. They even love her very much. What fills me with anger the most is that she is so false in front of us. Do you know the number of times I offered to babysit my stepbrother so she and my dad can go on a date? All those times she refused to let me take care of him. But now I saw comments that she left about how I am living at my father's house and I don't help her at all, only for other people to respond saying that she should give my father an ultimatum to make me leave because I'm too old to live with him and he has a new family. I cook my food, do my laundry, share a room with my sister. I help my father pay the bills while she doesn't. And I only come home on the weekends because I'm doing a police academy all week. I don't even care if I'm making it too obvious who I am. It was my father who told me to move back with him so that when I come back from the academy on Friday nights, it will be a shorter trip. She sexualizes my interactions with my father, saying that it is not normal for me to sleep and nap hugging him and that I should know my place. He is my father. What the hell is wrong with her? I'm so disgusted. Relevant comments. Comment 1. This shows your father what she really thinks of you all, because once you're all eventually out and she gets her wish, she's gonna work double time to keep it that way and isolate him. Comment 2. You won't get any inheritance. She will make sure of it. OP. I don't think my father has anything to inherit to us. We all lose in that. OP on why she is in the police academy. I live in a third world country. Half of my colleagues are women in vulnerable situations. The only way out they found was to get into the police because here you get free healthcare, education, and money. Women who have left their children to walk forward in the only way they found. You demonstrate your privilege by criticizing and being judgmental about someone just because of their work without knowing everything behind it all. OP on if she has had a relationship with her stepmom and if they have talked on a regular basis. Honestly, I would have taken the time to sit down with her and chat about how she feels before I knew all of this. She's had years to adjust, but now I don't give a shit about what a person who says, I want to scroll my own father, and that learning sign language is a waste of her time feels. When my sister feels bad for not being able to communicate with her too much after years. Nothing justifies being jealous of a daughter with her father. Nothing justifies her comments. It's one thing to say you're stressed and another to make up things on the internet about your stepdaughter. I deleted the post. July 17, 2024. Hi, I decided to delete the post because, for now, I can't tell anyone what happened since I'll basically be locked up in the academy until Friday morning. In fact, I shouldn't even be using my cell phone now. Someone with too much free time shared the situation in that sub of stepparents to warn my SM. I have screenshots of everything, including a video showing that it is her email and showing the comments. If she sees that post, what will she do? Delete the account? I already have the proof, but I don't want my siblings to find out before I tell them. And I know that those types of posts usually end up in those TikToks that re-upload posts without permission. So, I prefer to delete the post so that it doesn't stand out even more, although my siblings don't use Reddit or that kind of content. I'm going to post again in that sub when I talk about everything with my family, so I hope Redditors know how to keep the secret of the post for now. I know they won't. Ha ha ha. Being a stepmom is hard. Yes, one thing is feeling that you're having a hard time, and another totally different thing is making a post saying that you hate it when your stepdaughter is around her father because you think she's going to scrow him. It is not the same to say being a step-parent is stressful than to say, honestly, learning SL is unnecessary because when the girl turns 18, I will not see her again. It is a waste of time since she can read lips. Also, some people complained about me hugging my dad. I also take a nap hugging my mother or my siblings. I'm sorry for having a family that loves me and are not perverts who see a hug as something sexual. Probably next week, I will be able to maybe give an update. The academy keeps me working almost all day. Comment. Oh honey, my heart breaks for you. You do sound very mature and responsible. I have helped my sister raise my niece, who is now 23 and is totally alienated from her dad, who left my sister for his now wife when my niece was only 10 months old, and stepfamily because her stepmom is much like yours but has done far worse things but then in a narcissistic way blamed it on my sister and I. My niece acts very tough and nonchalant about it. But a good few months ago, we were watching Hope Floats, and she just burst into tears, sobbing, "Why doesn't Dad love me? What did I do wrong?" There is no perfect outcome for this, sadly, but I do feel that she needs to know that you know, and so do your mom and siblings if possible. Do it in a calm, factual way that protects your integrity. From my experience, do not respond and/or mirror or act like her. Always maintain your dignity and equilibrium in spite of what people here might say. Always maintain the upper hand. My sister and I did not, and sadly reacted to a lot of what my niece's stepmom did with rage. She, as any good narcissist would, in turn use this against us. Update 1. I talked with my siblings and my mom, July 20th, 2024. Hi, for now, I'm going to post this little update here since I haven't spoken to my father yet. But I spoke with my siblings and mom. I told my dad that I was staying at a friend's house when I left the academy, but I actually went to my mom's house and told her everything. She doesn't even know what Reddit is, that site isn't used too much here, but I translated the comments and posts for her. I showed her the videos and my mom was furious. I explained to her that in the comments, BM is Madre Biologica, biological mother. I was confused about it too the first time I read that, also with SM. So my SM also made comments and posts complaining about my mother, being that they have always had a cordial treatment, but still my SM was lying, saying that my mother was troublesome. No one in the comments said anything. Everyone supported her, and they recommended that she should move far away with her legal family, far away from the problematic BM and kids. First, we told my brother, who was also upset and said that she was a fake, but that he has seen her ignore my sister and pretend that she does not see or hear her a lot of times. He explained that, like me, it also seems strange to him that SM has not yet learned sign language. My siblings spend a lot of time at my father's house. Just like English or Spanish, sign language is much easier to learn if you live with someone who uses it every day. Therefore, it is strange that SM doesn't use it. He said that even my father has offered to pay for her classes, but she says she doesn't have time. We asked him if he noticed any other behavior of that kind, and he said that SM doesn't let him take care of our younger brother, which she also does with me, but curiously she does let our sister take care of him, so I don't understand that. Other than that, she's never treated him badly or anything like that. At the time of telling my sister, she was the most hurt. She cried, especially because of SM's comments towards me, calling me an a-hole. It's kind of ironic how the comments towards her affected me and the comments towards me affected her. Haha. Something that my sister noticed that I didn't is that almost all of SM's comments are criticizing me, my sister, and even my mother, but my brother she has only criticized sleepovers or when he comes back late from being with his friends. But she has criticized my and my sister's clothes, made up things about my life, confessed that she hates it when we hug our father. She said we're too clingy. She talked badly about my mother, etc. My sister said it's sexist and maybe she's got some mental problem. My sister said she always believed SM didn't really hear her, and she maybe wasn't speaking well and didn't understand her. I think that's the shittiest thing of all. My sister's greatest pride is being able to pronounce some words, no matter how short they are or if they sound like noise for some people. We understand her, but SM made her feel insecure every time she ignored her. I know that my sister always justified that by believing that it was her mistake and that SM made an effort to learn, but it was simply more difficult for her. But now we know that no, she was never interested in learning. I'm getting mad again as I write this, sorry. My mother said she was going to talk to both of them, mainly because even though it's an anonymous site, SM's way of expressing herself is sick, and she's not going to let my siblings be around someone like that. Oh, but she's venting. Being a stepmom is lonely. I received comments like that. It's not the same to say, I feel lonely and I feel stressed, than to say, my stepdaughter behaves like an a-hole just because me and my minor sister uses a bikini for the pool. Her account is old. She's been leaving comments like that for years, with lies, with complaints we never heard before. It's just messed up. We arranged that we're going to tell our father all together and show him everything, so we're probably going to tell him tomorrow because I need to leave for the academy on Monday. My SM account has not been deleted. It's crazy how she makes things up to get approval from strangers. At this point, I don't even know if she's crazy or a mythomaniac. I would like to go back to her email since the password is saved, but I don't know if she will receive a notification of that because this time I closed the account. Update 2. July 22nd, 2024. We talked to my father over the weekend. For now, he is staying at my mother's house. It is a complicated situation since in the middle of everything is my half-sibling too. During the weekend, I went to my father's house, and the first thing I did was tell my stepmom separately that I've seen her Reddit account and I'm going to talk about it with my dad. She told me that I can't condemn her for something she uses as an intimate diary, but I told her that this is not a diary. It is a social network where she makes her problems and lies public. If someone other than me discovered her account, then what was going to happen? Were they going to believe all the things she invented? If her identity was revealed on that account by someone else, I would have too many problems and could even be kicked out of the academy. Again, there's a big difference between saying, I'm stressed, and my stepdaughters behave like an a-hole around their father. I simply told her that my mother and sister also know it and would come to talk about it too. She, for obvious reasons, just went to lock herself in her room, not wanting to talk with me. Once we talked to my father, I showed him most of the posts and comments. There were so many crazy comments that I think it would take me too long to read them all because they were just so long too. She's that kind of people who comments the bio of their lives in the posts of other people. My father got angry. My SM never expressed having a single problem with us like that. The situation would be different if we knew what she thinks about us. My father went to look for my SM, who refused to talk about it and was mostly angry with me for violating her privacy. My father told her that she's insane for thinking that my sister and I sexually provoked him, that he can't believe the way she talks about my sister and the happiness she expresses every time my sister goes to the hospital and is not home, how she expresses to be counting the days until my sibling stops going to the house forever. My father told her that she knew that he is a father and that he would never leave us aside. She made her decision, and even so, instead of talking about her problem, she decided to create an account to play at being a victim. She said she needs a place to vent, but he told her that venting is not the same as telling lies. Venting is not the same as hating your stepdaughters and talking horrible things about them, and she could have spoken about it and not just lied. They argued a lot, but it didn't get anywhere because she kept defending herself, and my father only told her that it was over. My mother told my father that she is not going to let my sister and brother be around a woman who is clearly mentally unstable because no normal person thinks like that. After arguing too much and even trying to make SM understand that what she did is wrong, she just justified herself all the time. My father went with us and told her that he is going to come back just to see my brother every day, but that he no longer trusts her and never saw that side of her. She lied for so many years. Nothing really went as I expected. I think I at least hoped that she could apologize, but I think she doesn't even think that what she did is wrong. In her mind, everything was totally justified because being a stepmother is difficult. But nothing justifies her being so cruel and poisonous. But yeah, that's what happened. I think it's hurtful to know that someone can hide that much darkness inside. I wasn't too close with her, but I liked her to the point of sharing my clothes and things with her, so I also feel sad about it, mostly for my dad. Editor's note translation. I would like to just say that she is insane, but I think that would give room to justify her behavior. She is simply a two-headed viper. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Is her account still up? Or did she delete everything? She's absolutely insane and a narcissist if she can't see that what she did was wrong. I hope it all works out for you guys. Stay strong. OP. The last time I looked, it was still there. I have her email password saved on my computer, so if she doesn't delete it, I'll tell my sister to do it for me. Some people told me that they have recognized some of her comments, so yes or yes, I will delete the account if she doesn't. Comment 2. Wow, just wow. You think you know someone and then 1 second, bam. I am so sorry you and your family are dealing with this. SM is off her rocker. Does she need constant attention and approval? She needs therapy and most likely the whole family because this is a traumatic event and major trust issues are now forming. Stay well, stay strong. Update 3. August 25th, 2024. 1 month later. Hello. It's been a while, and I honestly forgot to make an update. Not many things have happened, but I just want to update for people who were worried. My younger brother has been visiting us. Our father still lives at my mother's house. Luckily, my stepmom lets my dad bring him home some days of the week and on weekends. I deleted her account weeks ago. She didn't tell me anything about it or if she saw any TikTok or post about this. Maybe now she's afraid to use Reddit or something like that. I only deleted the posts, but there were too many comments, and I honestly didn't want to waste my time deleting them one by one. I'm not sure if comments are automatically deleted with the account as well. I'm not going to talk too much about her and my father's relationship, but she continues to deny that she did anything wrong and has a very misogynistic way of thinking about women, and apparently she does not intend to change her way of thinking. It's too crazy how now we know her dark side, but at the same time, she's still her with my little brother and even my father. My father is separated from her for now because he doesn't have money to pay for the divorce. She said that if they come back together, she will not let me enter her house after what I did. So my father decided to stop trying with her. I have no idea what legal arrangement they have on the house or what will happen when they divorce, but I guess my father is going to leave the house to her, and he's going to find another place to rent. In order for my younger brother to suffer as little stress as possible from a separation for a toddler, moving is a lot of anxiety, so it's better for him to stay comfortable in his place. I wouldn't have any problem with that, and neither would my siblings. I prefer my brother to have a home and suffer as little as possible from the separation. So yes, that has happened. I'm surprised that a month has passed. I feel like it's been 7 years, but these kinds of serious processes last months, so nothing interesting or anything like that has happened for now. I'm glad my little brother can be with us. Update 4, October 5th, 2024. 1.5 months later. Hello. It's been a while since I last posted here. I just wanted to give one last update before leaving this for a few months since things like divorces take a lot of time and long processes. Much more so when minors are involved. If my father and SM agree on everything, the divorce process can be finished in 3 months. But if not, it can last up to a year. It all depends on them. This will probably be a pretty boring update, but I want to reassure people who are worried about me and my siblings. My father has screenshots of everything, even the video of me entering her stepmom account from her email on my computer. I don't think it will do much good during divorce since internet laws are a gray area here, but it's always better for him to have that just in case. Needless to say, SM will be, maybe in 3 months if everything goes well, officially only my little brother's mother and no more my SM. Luckily, she lets my little brother come to my mother's house and spend time with my father and us. As always, he comes almost every day of the week. My father is going to leave the house to her so that the divorce will be the least stressful for my brother. At one point, my father wanted to ask her to let me stay there on the weekends when I come back from the academy, but I told him not to do that. Honestly, I'm afraid to wake up and find her on the end of the bed looking at me like misery. I don't want to share a house with her at all. The only and last time I had a conversation with SM again, I asked her if she wasn't ashamed of anything, and she totally ignored me. I think the most affected by this was my sister, who feels she has suffered discrimination from our stepmother, and I honestly believe her. My sister has told us about some situations that she let go of but now realizes were micro-discriminatory behaviors against her. Although they were not things like making fun of her in front of her face, there are microaggressions that we often decide to ignore, but they are done with malice. For example, my brother said that SM once said that my father's son's Saline Bendel horn. At the time, he took it as a random comment. Maybe we are overthinking, but now he thinks it was something with double intention towards me and my sister, like saying that we didn't come out well. Again, things we like to ignore and think, nah, it was just a random comment. She has never apologized. She has the kind of mentality that the husband is only the wife's man and the partner comes before the children, which in my opinion is because she's only jealous of me and my sister. Imagine being jealous of your husband's daughters. SM strongly believes that she didn't do anything wrong except not to have written that in a secret diary. At least she now admits that. Maybe in 10 years she will realize everything else. My father, for obvious reasons, has gotten tired of trying to talk to her in a mature way, so they are going to divorce, and I guess she expected it because she didn't make any fuss or anything like that. Divorces are a long and expensive process, so for now, my parents and SM too, at least she's a good mother to her own son, are focusing on not letting my younger brother feel those chaotic vibes, and my parents are taking care to not let my sister feel too bad either. They will go for joint custody since my father could not take care of my little brother 24/7 because of his work, and anyway they would not give him to him since he does not have a house or all the things that the courts ask for. I think the least affected by all this is my other brother, who is in dad. She's a slut, just find another girlfriend mode, but I guess that's how teenagers are anyway. There were people who found some of the posts or even comments, which surprised me lol. I've also been getting harassment from people from that sub, but know that I've already deleted the account. Congratulations to those who found the account. Now on to the next story. Story 9. I quit my job to care for my father but was shocked to discover his interactions with a prostitute broker and substantial withdrawals from his brokerage account. My name is Daniel. At 29, living in a bustling metropolitan area just an hour's drive from where I was raised, I find myself in a juxtaposition of worlds. My high-paced urban life as a successful software developer contrasts sharply with the quiet suburban life of my family. Earning $200,000 a year, I've established a comfortable existence in the city, complete with a sleek apartment overlooking the skyline, a wardrobe suited for tech company chic, and a social circle that revolves around tech meetups, weekend hiking trips, and the occasional high-end restaurant outing. Yet, despite this seemingly ideal setup, my thoughts frequently drift back to the single-story house nestled in the serene suburbs, the place I still call home. The house, with its fading red brick facade and the large oak tree my father planted the year I was born, cradles more than just memories. It embodies the ongoing story of my family. My mother, Jane, at 64, still powers through her work week, dedicating over 60 hours to her managerial role at a local logistics company. Despite the toll it takes, She brings home $95,000 annually, a sum that barely stretches to cover the essentials and the medical bills that have begun to pile up. Her resilience, often silent and unacknowledged, has been the cornerstone of our family's survival. Living with her are my father, Michael, and my older sister, Sarah, along with her spirited 4.5-year-old son, Ethan. Dad, aged 73, retired a few years back. His days of working as an electrician are behind him, replaced now by afternoons on the porch with a crossword puzzle. The remnants of a life spent in labor quietly fading into the routine of a man sustained by Social Security checks. His recent health scares, multiple heart surgeries aimed at preventing strokes, have marked him with a fragility that is both new and deeply disconcerting. Sarah, having never quite recovered from a tumultuous divorce, teaches at a local preschool, earning just $60 an hour. She relies heavily on our parents for support. The echoes of her laughter, once the soundtrack of our childhood, now seem muffled by the weight of single motherhood and financial strain. Ethan's youthful energy brings a much-needed brightness to the house, his innocence a stark contrast to the complexities of the adult lives around him. Growing up, the warmth of family was the foundation of my world. My parents, though never well off, ensured that my sister and I lacked for nothing essential. They poured their energies into nurturing our interests, mine in computers and hers in art, fueling our dreams with the kind of unwavering support only parents can provide. This backdrop of familial love and sacrifice has shaped my understanding of responsibility and gratitude. Even as a teenager, I understood that the financial planning my parents had managed wouldn't suffice for their retirement. The inevitability of my role as their future financial backbone became apparent early on. It was a silent promise I made to myself, standing in our modest backyard, looking up at the stars. A promise to give back to the two people who had given me everything. My life now, filled with coding sprints and software launches, is worlds away from the simplicity of suburban rhythms. Yet, the success I found in the city isn't just mine. It belongs to my family too. Each achievement, each milestone reached, is a testament to the sacrifices made in that small house. This connection pulls me back time and again to where it all began. The phone calls began to increase about 6 months ago. Mom's voice, usually steady and calm, carried a tremor of worry as she updated me on Dad's health. The surgeries, the complications, and the haunting diagnosis of microvascular dementia and cerebrovascular disease that followed. Each call etched a deeper line of concern into my daily life, a stark reminder of the ephemeral nature of time and health. It was during one such call, as I gazed out over the city lights from my apartment, that the decision was made. The pull of my family's needs outweighed the allure of city lights and fleeting tech trends. I knew then, with a certainty that rooted itself deep within me, I needed to return home, to be there in ways that phone calls and weekend visits simply couldn't cover. So, I started to plan. Plans for a future that involved more than just my personal aspirations. Plans that would weave the safety and well-being of my family into the fabric of my daily existence. This wasn't just a decision born out of duty, but out of a deep-seated love and a commitment to those who had shaped me. This return home isn't merely a change of address. It's a reorientation of my life's priorities. As I pack up my city life, each item I place into a box. A book, a photo, a souvenir from a tech conference, is a tangible reminder of the journey I've undertaken. Ahead lies a path filled with challenges and adjustments, but also with the opportunity to give back in the most meaningful way possible. As I maneuvered my sedan into the familiar driveway of my childhood home, the crunch of gravel under tires felt like a metaphor for the uneasy reintroduction to a life I once knew. Stepping out, I was greeted by the sight of my mother, Jane, at the front door. Her smile was warm but worn, the kind that spoke of countless worries weathered over years. She wrapped me in an embrace that felt both comforting and desperate, her way of saying she needed help without uttering a word. Inside, the atmosphere of the house was thick with the scent of nostalgia mixed with tension. My sister, Sarah, stood in the kitchen, a half-smile playing on her lips as she juggled making dinner and entertaining Ethan, who buzzed around with the boundless energy of childhood. Our greetings were brief, a stilted exchange that belied the deeper currents of concern we all felt but didn't voice. Sarah was visibly thinner than I remembered, her face drawn not just from the fatigue of single motherhood, but from the constant strain of living in a house clouded with uncertainty. The first few days were an adjustment, a recalibration of roles within our family dynamics. My mother continued to work, her hours unyielding despite the added emotional load. At night, we sat at the dinner table, conversations skirting around the unspoken. Dad's condition, the financial strain, the future. It was during these meals that I truly understood the full extent of what had been kept from me in our phone calls. The weight of Dad's medical expenses, the fear of what was to come, and the everyday challenges of caring for someone who was slowly forgetting the life he had led. Dad's interactions with us had changed profoundly. Once a lively storyteller, his conversations now lost their thread, his frustrations palpable as he grappled with the gaps in his memory. Observing him, I saw flashes of the man who taught me to ride a bike, who fixed broken appliances with a magician's ease, now struggling to remember names, faces, and dates. The impact on Mom was heartbreaking. She oscillated between being a caring spouse and a weary nurse, her face etching deeper with lines of sorrow each day. Sarah's reaction to my return was mixed. Initially, there was relief, an extra pair of hands to help, a reprieve from her role as the primary support. But as days passed, old grievances surfaced. We clashed not just over small, mundane things like household chores or schedules, but about deeper issues. Resentments about past decisions, particularly my choice to move away and pursue my career, came to light. "You left just when things were getting tough," she accused one evening, her words slicing through the fragile peace. "And now you just barge back in, expecting to fix everything?" These confrontations were painful but necessary. They opened up dialogues long overdue about our roles in this family, about support and sacrifice. It was through these difficult conversations that we began to navigate our new reality. Slowly, we started to forge a path forward, not just as individuals living under one roof, but as a cohesive unit facing a crisis together. Through it all, my bond with Ethan became a source of joy and escape. His innocence and unbridled enthusiasm for life reminded us all of the simpler joys. In his world, the problems were as solvable as figuring out the right block to fit into a puzzle. He became my little shadow, following me around, asking questions, his laughter a balm on the rough days. As weeks turned into months, my role in the family began to solidify. I found myself balancing my work remotely with attending doctor's appointments with Dad, discussing financial strategies with Mom, and providing moral support to Sarah. The shift was palpable. Where once I was just a visitor in their lives, I became an integral part of the household's daily rhythm. One evening, as Mom and I sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, she turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm so glad you're here," she whispered. "It's been hard, harder than I ever let on. But having you here makes it feel like we can manage this, like we're not alone in it." Her words struck a chord. I realized then that my return was not just about providing financial or physical support. It was about healing, about mending the frayed threads of our family fabric. It was about showing up, not just in times of crisis, but every day, proving through actions that family, with all its imperfections and challenges, is worth every sacrifice. The transition back home wasn't smooth. It was fraught with adjustments, misunderstandings, and at times, heartache. But it was also filled with moments of profound connection, understanding, and gradual healing. In this house, with these people, I rediscovered the essence of home. It wasn't just a place, but a feeling of belonging, of being needed, and most importantly, of loving and being loved unconditionally. The stability we once took for granted began to shake when my father's health declined. The man who taught me how to throw a baseball, who could fix just about anything broken, found himself battling a series of health issues that seemed to come one after the other. It started with heart problems that required immediate and intensive medical intervention. The terms TAVR, transcatheter aortic valve replacement, and TACR, transcarotid artery revascularization, became unexpectedly familiar as we navigated through the complexities of cardiac surgeries designed to prevent strokes. Despite the doctor's efforts, a stroke slipped through the cracks of medical prevention, leaving him with small vessel disease and vascular dementia. His cognitive functions began to deteriorate, a stark contrast to the sharp wit and immense knowledge he once wielded effortlessly. Making the decision to move back home wasn't easy. It required me to uproot the life I had built in the city. The late-night coding sessions, the weekend hikes, the network of ambitious, tech-savvy friends. I had to step away from a promotion that was almost in reach, trading potential career advancements for family responsibilities. It was a trade I made willingly, driven by an innate sense of duty that my parents had instilled in me from a young age. Moving back to the suburban home where I grew up meant reacquainting myself with its rhythms and routines. My old room, once a shrine to teenage ambitions and dreams, now seemed smaller, the walls echoing the past. Adjusting to this life meant quieter evenings, the absence of city noise replaced by the subtle sounds of a house that breathed with the lives of its inhabitants. It meant seeing my father's empty chair at the dinner table when he had particularly bad days, and it meant stepping into the role of caretaker, a role I had never envisioned in my youthful imaginings. To aid in my father's care, I introduced technology that I hoped would bridge the gap between his needs and my ability to meet them. The AirPods Pro I bought him connected him to his favorite music and shows, providing comfort when the confusion of dementia clouded his mind. More significantly, I gifted him my Apple Watch Series 8, equipped with health monitoring features. This watch became a crucial tool in tracking his heart's behavior, particularly its ability to detect atrial fibrillation, a condition we now watched meticulously. The transition was emotionally taxing. The joy of being close to my family again was often overshadowed by the realities of my father's condition. Each doctor's visit, each small sign of his worsening health, reminded me of why I had returned. I spent countless hours researching ways to enhance his quality of life, from diet changes to cognitive exercises that might slow the progression of his dementia. That night was unusually quiet, the sort of silence that seems almost anticipatory, as if the house itself was holding its breath. After dinner, where conversation fluttered nervously around mundane topics, I found myself restless, with a mind that refused to quiet. I decided to tinker with some of the tech gadgets I'd brought for Dad, thinking perhaps I could distract myself. Dad had always been somewhat wary of technology, but he had taken a peculiar interest in the Apple Watch I gave him, fascinated by its ability to monitor his heart rate and other health metrics. It had become a routine for me to help him set it up, ensure it was charged, and sometimes reset it to make sure it was functioning optimally. That night, as I took the watch into my hands, I noticed it needed resetting. The screen was lit up with notifications, too many for Dad to have possibly managed on his own. As I navigated through the menus to find the settings, a message notification popped up briefly before disappearing. My curiosity piqued. I ventured into the Messages app. It was then I noticed the recently deleted folder had entries, something I hadn't expected Dad to know how to use. The logical part of my mind suggested there was a simple explanation. Perhaps Mom had deleted messages after borrowing his watch. But something about the late hour, the quiet of the house, and the nagging sense of unease that had settled in my stomach compelled me to open the folder. The messages I found there were not just surprising. They were shocking. The texts were not from family members or old friends, but from an unknown number, discussing arrangements and meetings with an unsettling familiarity and explicitness. Each message was more revealing than the last, discussing times, locations, and payments. The content was clear. My father had been communicating with a prostitute broker. I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me, followed by a sharp pang of betrayal. My father, the man who had taught me the values of honesty and integrity, was leading a secret life that was now laid bare before me. I sat there, the watch heavy in my hands, as I struggled to reconcile this image with the father I thought I knew. Driven by a need to understand the full extent of this betrayal, I logged into his brokerage account, which he had shared access with me years ago for emergencies. What I found only deepened the chasm that was opening up inside me. The account, which should have held close to $100,000, was now down to $6,000. The transaction history showed several withdrawals of $3,000 each over the past year, coinciding with the dates mentioned in the deleted texts. The room felt like it was spinning as I pieced together the implications of these withdrawals. This wasn't just a moral transgression. It was a financial betrayal that affected our entire family. The money in that account was supposed to be part of my parents' retirement fund, crucial for their care, especially given Dad's health condition. Yet it had been siphoned away to fund clandestine meetings that shattered the facade of the life we had been living. I sat alone with this information well into the night, the glow from the screen of my laptop casting shadows on the walls. The weight of what I had discovered felt overwhelming, not just in its immediate impact, but in what it meant for the future. How could I confront my father about this? What would this revelation do to my mother, who had already borne so much? And what of Sarah and Ethan, who lived under this roof, innocent and unaware of the storm that was brewing? The night's revelations hung heavily in the air, tainting the familiar comfort of my old bedroom. I lay there staring at the ceiling, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, from anger and betrayal to an overwhelming sense of desolation. Growing up, my father was my hero. He was the one who taught me to ride a bike, to respect others, and to stand up for what I believe in. But as I grew older, I witnessed the facade crumble. Behind closed doors, his relationship with my mother was fraught with tension and discord. He spent money with little regard for our family's financial stability, indulging in whims as if the act could fill the growing voids within our household. My mother, in stark contrast, was the pillar who bore the financial burdens, working tirelessly yet never allowed herself the luxury of even the smallest indulgences. In my early 20s, the strain had become unbearable. I had issued an ultimatum to them: resolve their issues or face losing me. At the time, it seemed like a necessary threat. Looking back, it only served to deepen the divide, especially with my mother, who felt caught in an impossible situation. She resented the position I put her in, yet continued to patch the seams of our family fabric in silence. The night before, as I delved deeper into my father's deceit, the years of pent-up frustration and disappointment erupted. The discovery of his communications with a prostitute broker, along with the significant withdrawals from his brokerage account, was the last straw. This wasn't just a moral failing. It was a betrayal that jeopardized our family's financial security. Sitting at the kitchen table that morning, surrounded by the remnants of my childhood and the shattered pieces of the respect I once had for my father, I felt a profound sense of alienation. I couldn't face my family. I couldn't look into my mother's eyes, knowing the additional pain this would cause her. So I made a decision, one that now, in the quiet solitude of my city apartment, I question with every aching part of my being. I left without a word of explanation. I packed a bag, the weight of each item seeming to anchor me further into a quagmire of guilt and confusion. I left a note, vague and insufficient, expressing a need for some time alone to think. As I drove back to the metropolitan bustle from which I had come, each mile widened the chasm between my family and me, both physically and emotionally. Now sitting in the dim light of my apartment, the city sounds a dull roar in the background. I am plagued by uncertainty and remorse. The silence of the space amplifies the chaos of my thoughts. I ponder the irony of how I, who had returned home to mend and care, had fled when the reality of my family's imperfections became too stark to bear. I'm struggling with the dichotomy of my emotions. On one hand, my father's actions are indefensible, a reckless endangerment of our family's stability and my mother's sacrifices. On the other, he is still my father, the man who, despite his flaws, played a crucial role in who I am today. How do I reconcile these two sides? How do I balance the scales of justice and filial duty? I remember my mother's words from years ago, after I had issued my ultimatum. She had said, "We all have our demons and disappointments, but we don't have to carry them alone." Her words echo in my mind now, a reminder that perhaps abandonment isn't the solution, but a continuation of a cycle of hurt. I find myself typing out my thoughts, casting them into the void of the internet. Perhaps someone out there has faced similar crossroads, has navigated the murky waters of familial obligation and personal integrity. I seek not absolution but perspective. How do others deal with the complexities of family dynamics where love and disappointment are so often intertwined? As I sit here, the cursor blinking expectantly, I realize that my journey back home isn't just about geographical distance. It's about bridging the gap between the son I was and the man I need to become. It's about facing the hard truths, not just about my father, but about myself and my own reactions. It's about understanding that in the tapestry of family, each thread, however flawed, contributes to the strength and pattern of the whole. Tomorrow I will call my mother. I will not offer excuses for my abrupt departure, but I will listen. I will try to understand her side of this lifelong partnership that has borne so much strain. And perhaps, through these conversations, we can begin to forge a new path forward. Not just for her and me, but for our entire family. For now, I sit alone with my thoughts, the city outside unaware of the turmoil within. But I am resolved not to let this night pass without reaching out, without trying to mend what has been broken. For in the end, family is not just about the good times shared, but also about navigating the storms together and emerging, perhaps a little battered, but whole. I find myself in a situation where I desperately need some guidance, and I hope you can offer me your opinions and possible solutions. After uncovering some troubling secrets about my father's actions, which have jeopardized our family's financial stability and emotional well-being, I'm torn about how to best handle the situation. I left home abruptly, driven by a mix of anger, disappointment, and confusion, and now, sitting alone in my apartment, I'm struggling to find the right course of action. This discovery has not only caused a rift in my family but has also left me questioning my own decisions, especially my immediate reaction to flee. The dynamics in my family have always been complicated, shaped by long-standing financial strains and personal grievances, and this latest revelation feels like a breaking point. I am reaching out to you, the community, in hopes of gaining some perspective on how others might navigate such a family crisis. How do you balance personal integrity with familial responsibilities, especially when faced with deep-seated issues like betrayal? How can I approach this situation in a way that might help mend the relationships rather than cause further damage? Your insights and advice would be invaluable to me during this difficult time, and I truly appreciate any thoughts you share. Thank you for taking the time to listen about my situation and for any guidance you can provide. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Stayed silent for 2 months and collected evidence after finding out my wife was cheating. She's mad when I confronted her, but I felt nothing. Hello everyone, my 30M, wife, 34F, and I have been together for 8 years, 5 of them married. I thought we were the kind of couple that could tell each other any problem. I loved her deeply and always believed she felt the same way about me. Like many couples, we had our ups and downs, but I never thought it could lead to infidelity. For months ago, I started noticing changes in her behavior. She was more distant, always glued to the phone, and avoiding our conversations. You know, the typical thing about a cheating person. Well, one day I came across a message on her phone that confirmed what I feared the most. She was seeing someone else. It was like a punch in the stomach. I felt anger, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. But instead of confronting her right away, I decided to wait. My main reason was to protect myself in a possible divorce. If I was going to face this situation, I wanted to have solid evidence. So, I spent the next 2 months gathering messages, photos, and anything else I could use if things got legally difficult. During those 2 months, I pretended normality while the pain piled up. I watched her act like everything was fine, and with each passing day, my feelings for her faded. The love I once felt was replaced by indifference. If anyone says that love for someone doesn't go away, well, it's not entirely true. When I finally gathered all the evidence, I confronted her. I showed her everything I knew, and although she tried to deny it at first, she finally admitted that she had been having an affair. She said it was a mistake, that she still loved me, and that she wanted to work things out. But by then, I didn't feel anything anymore. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even get angry. I simply told her that it was okay, that we could get a divorce and that we could each move on with our lives. My lack of emotion baffled her. She said my indifference was cold and cruel and that if I had truly loved her, I should have fought to save our marriage, which was ironic coming from her. But the truth was that I did love her very much, only after 2 months of living with the betrayal in silence. I just didn't care. Update 1. September 16, 2024. Wow, honestly, I didn't expect the number of messages I've received in the last few hours. I apologize for not responding to the comments, but rest assured, I am reading them. My inbox is filled with hundreds of replies, and I'm truly surprised by the support and the number of people who took the time to share their experiences and opinions. At first, I felt overwhelmed reading so many stories from people who have gone through similar situations, some even worse. I never imagined that so many people could relate to what I'm going through. I guess it's eye-opening to see that infidelity is more common than I thought. And yes, there were also comments that made me question if I disconnected emotionally too quickly. But after reflecting, I believe I did what I needed to do to protect myself. Some people told me I should have tried to save the marriage, but the truth is, I don't think I could have. The betrayal felt like a wall that went up between us, and once I saw everything clearly, there was no way to go back to what we had. It's not that I don't want to love or be loved. It's just that the chapter with her is over for me. Does that make me cruel? I don't know, but it's my truth. One of the most impactful things was seeing how many people are stuck in relationships where trust has been broken and they don't know how to move forward. To everyone who asked how I'm doing, I don't have a definitive answer. For me, it was a slow process, day by day, watching the love fade until it was just gone. There were also some messages from people in my wife's position, those who had made mistakes but genuinely wanted to make things right. It made me think, what would have happened if I had confronted her before my feelings faded? Maybe things would have turned out differently, but honestly, I don't think so. Once trust is broken like that, it's nearly impossible to go back to what it was. Anyway, I want to thank everyone who shared their words, whether they were supportive or critical. You've given me a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for that. I'm processing all of this little by little, but if there's one thing I'm sure of, it's that for the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe and look forward without the weight of what happened. Thanks again. Update 2. October 29, 2024. Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know, I'm the guy whose wife cheated on him with someone else and he became indifferent. I'm doing this mini update because many of you asked me to give one, but I'm lazy today, so don't expect a long one. Well, for starters, the divorce is in progress. The notice was delivered to her at one of her friends' houses, since the house we live in is mine from my mother's side. Moving on to the divorce, she didn't take it well and called me to tell me that she would contest it, that we weren't getting a divorce. I didn't say anything. I just hung up because it bothered me to hear her voice at that moment. I read comments that say indifference is a way to protect yourself from strong emotions, and they were right. After a couple of days, I started thinking about the time invested in my marriage, and I really got angry for her. 8 years of relationship was nothing to open her legs to another jerk. For those curious, her lover is someone older, maybe 40 or 47, and he has a wife and kid. I don't care if the idiot has a heart attack or something. My soon-to-be ex and that guy are just trash that came out of the same landfill. Sorry, I was getting angry as I was writing, so I took some time to calm down. Back to my soon-to-be ex. I really don't care if she decides to contest the divorce. She's just making things harder for herself since all of our assets are separate, including the house where I live. For the moment, that's all I can share with you. Thanks for your advice, and to all of you who commented that I should work things out with her, screw you. You don't decide for others, you just show that you have problems. I'd rather divorce 1,000 times than stay with a traitor with no morals. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.